Debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. Here's what's coming up on today's action-packed show. Carrying her red box of doom, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, unleashed a blistering £30 billion tax raid, but she maintained she was making the right choices.
To see a credible or a fairer alternative plan for working people. These are my choices, the right choices for a fairer, a stronger and more secure Britain.
Brace yourselves, because 1 million more British workers will now pay a higher rate of income tax, as Rachel Reeves confirmed she would freeze thresholds for another 3 years.
To break the cycle of austerity, we need a fair and a sustainable tax system. That does mean that today I am asking everyone to make a contribution.
And as expected, the Chancellor has introduced that mansion tax on properties worth over £2 million.
This new surcharge will raise over £400 million by 2031.
Now, the Chancellor also announced that the two-child benefit cap will be scrapped, one of the most significant welfare changes in nearly a decade.
We on this side of the House do not believe that the solution to a broken welfare system is to punish the most vulnerable. We are lifting 450,000 children out of poverty with the end of the two-child limit.
And the Tory leader Kemi Badenoch blasted back and called for Rachel Reeves to resign.
After this budget, she will go down as the country's worst ever chancellor.
Meanwhile, the shadow Chancellor, who'll be on the show later on, Mel Stride, he called for a criminal investigation as the OBR sensationally leaks the budget before Rachel Reeves even got to the dispatch box.
This report contains market-sensitive information.
Yes, fine.
It is utterly outrageous that this has happened.
And as I announced there, Mel Stride joins us later on in the show. And any moment now, we're expecting to hear reaction from Nigel Farage. We'll bring you that Reform UK press conference as it happens. And despite a last-minute Metropolitan Police ban, farmers have ploughed on to protest today against this budget.
We have to keep standing up for farming until there are changes.
But we, the people, are the power, aren't we? You know, if we don't stand up now, we're not going to have an open house chance.
Throughout today's action-packed show, we'll bring you the expert analysis to answer the only question that people care about. Will you be better off today than you were yesterday? Or will you be bracing yourself for more budget pain? Our reporters have been getting instant reaction from across the country.
Yes, I'm here in the heart of Westminster, where I'll be speaking to MPs from across the House throughout the programme. Conservatives I've spoken to are thrilled by their women's performance in the Commons. The Labour reaction, rather more mixed.
Here in Lichfield, we're in the centre of the country. We've already been speaking to businesses who are unsure about the level of support that they're getting from this budget. We'll be speaking to more over the next few hours.
I'm here in Scarborough in North Yorkshire. It's the UK's retirement capital, and I've been getting reaction from pensioners to that budget.
And here in County Durham, I'm in a pub, where else, to find out exactly whether the Chancellor's speech will have gone as smoothly as I've been pouring this pint.
And that was their Tom Harwood on the Pearl. Now, any moment now, we're expecting to hear from Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage, who'll be holding a press conference reacting to that budget. But before we cut to that, let's get some immediate, visceral reaction to a bruising budget. I'm joined in the studio. I'm going to Nigel Farage. Now.
One absolute truth that came from Rachel Reeves this morning, and that was that this government had a very bad inheritance. Just think of it. Tax levels at post-war highs, mass uncontrolled immigration, most people coming, not actually working, and being a burden and a massive cost. Net zero policies, deindustrialising Britain at a rapid rate, giving us the most expensive energy in the world, and generally debt, which went up about 2.5 times during those 14 years. So the economic inheritance that Labour had was poor. And whatever the Tory leader stands up and says in the House of Commons doesn't do anything to take that away. But I have to say, I sat there thinking this really was the Alice through the looking glass budget, with a healthy dose thrown in. Yes, words mean what I say they mean, not what they really mean. She talks about growth, and yet the projections for the next few years, growth is continually being downgraded. And quite how she and the Prime Minister can talk, they literally talked repeatedly about cutting debt. Cutting debt. And yet, even in their first year, they've borrowed 21 billion more than they were forecast to borrow before they even started. And the parts that I found really difficult to swallow, she talked about entrepreneurs, supporting entrepreneurs, not understanding that actually entrepreneurial people are generally deciding not to stay in this country, let alone invest in this country. And then the sort of classic phrase, no doubt fed to her by the Treasury, that we're stabilising the economy. Well, I was in North Wales earlier this week, and having met with local businesses, family businesses, farmers, I certainly got the feeling that the economy in certain parts of this country is very much on the edge of a precipice. So none of what she really said today was true. Taxes, well, I mentioned them already, but they're now up to 38%, just over 38% of GDP. She's managed to increase taxes in the space of just over a year, nearly more than any other chancellor in history, and they had much longer to do this. Well, we're very, very clear that we genuinely are on the side of alarm clock Britain, because here's the problem. Who is going to pay all these increased taxes? Not just the frozen thresholds, they're bad enough, but all the other taxes, whether it's on taxes or whatever else it may be. Basically, working people are going to be subsidising a welfare bill that shows no sign of going down whatsoever. Indeed, the Rachel Reeves version of abolishing the two-child cap will cost over £3 billion. Our plan to get rid of it for working British couples would have cost a mere £300 million every year. And if you look at the projections, they're quite clear to admit that net migration by the end of this Parliament will go up to over 1/3 of a million a year, and that on net zero there is absolutely no acceptance from the government whatsoever of the vast damage that net zero is doing. And all you've got to do is, you know, talk to the Jim Ratcliffes of this world who is at the moment closing down the biggest manufacturing plant left in Scotland to realise the sheer damage this is doing, and yet they're going to continue with their net zero plans. In fact, they're actually going to accelerate them. I would very much sum up this budget as an assault on aspiration and an assault on saving. Quite frankly, what she's done with voluntary contributions to pensions will, I think, kill off the SIP market, the self-invested pension plan. I think today's budget will literally kill that off and do damage to the private pension market, pretty much equivalent to what Gordon Brown did 25 years ago when he put tax on dividend earnings, which then couldn't be fully reinvested. Unnoticed, perhaps, in some areas, dividend taxes up yet again. And, you know, why would you invest if you feel there's a never-ending cycle of taxes on profits going up? Not to mention the mansion tax, which won't affect many people, but no doubt there'll be some widows living in Greater London that will be caused great distress by it. My big prediction from this budget is that the exodus will continue. They've got rid of the non-doms, well done. People that spend vast amounts of money in this country, that employ people, invest in people, they've gone. Many of our highest taxpayers, and bear in mind that 1% now pay 30% of all income tax, they're going. But worst of all of these signals from a government that literally doesn't understand business, because none of them have ever been in business, and frankly, there are few in the opposition who tick that box either. Now, my prediction is the exodus will continue, the exodus will accelerate, and the tragedy of it is the sheer number of 30-somethings who want to work hard, who want to do well, who are ambitious, and for them, they're seeing the Gulf. They're even seeing, ironically, other European countries. Milan in Italy being perhaps a very good example where young, hard-working entrepreneurs are going. That's one very, very big prediction that I've got from this budget. And the other one is, don't be deceived by being told that bills will go down. The big reach-out pledge of this budget, frozen train fares, yes, for those that commute, but energy bills, that's the big push for the government in this budget. Your energy bills will go down by £150. Bear in mind, this is the government that said they'd reduce energy bills by £300, and they're up almost exactly £300. The £150 reduction will be where they take some of the green subsidies, about 3/4 of the green subsidies off domestic energy bills, and throw that into general taxation, which means the working population will actually pay even more than we thought when I walked out of the chamber just some time ago. Energy clearly is going to be at the centrepiece of everything we fight for and stand for over the next couple of years. We cannot have an industrial strategy, we cannot reindustrialise, we cannot invite significant investment, be it British or be it foreign, until first we crack the nut of energy. And I would say this, we can't perform miracles if we win the next election, but we can at least be realistic. And we can at least say that already within reform we have people who've succeeded in the private sector, who've created jobs, who've paid taxes. And it's very much our ambition that we would have people in ministerial positions who are experts in their areas of expertise. Getting back to energy, just think about it. 10 energy ministers over the course of 14 years under a Conservative government, not one of them had a clue about energy. Just allowing civil servants to go on running these departments and maintaining a failed status quo. So we will come in with people that actually know what they're doing, the people who have worked in the private sector, and we will attempt to turn around attitudes in this country towards hard work and success. Well, one of those players who's part of the reform team, who has succeeded in the private sector and who's made a detailed analysis of this budget already, and will tell you some of the ways in which Rachel Reeves did not need to put up taxes like that, is my colleague Zia Youssef.
Good afternoon, everybody. So yes, it was after the leakiest budget process we've had in memory. We had a leak on the day. It was an omni-shambles budget from an omni-shambles chancellor. As Nigel has laid out, according to the OBR forecast, now taxes are indeed going up to 38% as a percentage of GDP by 2029. Welfare spending is going to be £16 billion higher by 2029. And a really important footnote on that is despite the OBR, it's really important people clock this, the OBR have assumed that the enormous growth in caseloads and things like PIP, for example, that we have seen since the end of COVID will slow. They haven't given any justification for that, but they've just assumed that it will slow. And if it didn't slow, if it continues at its current pace, then welfare spending will be £27 billion higher by 2029. That is one of many reasons why even the current OBR forecasts, as gloomy as they are inevitably and sadly going to be wrong. We have £1.8 billion allocated to digital ID. No electoral mandate for that whatsoever, deeply unpopular in the country, and they are taking that £1.8 billion out of the Home Office budget which is the only government department whose budget has been frozen in real terms, making a mockery, frankly, of Shabana Mahmood's statements. And at a time when immigration is the #1 issue in the country, what did Labour do? They basically freeze Home Office funding and take £1.8 billion of that budget to spend on digital ID, which is appalling. As Nigel said, net immigration reaffirmed to be up at 340,000 in 2029. By the way, when has that number ever been correct, and when has it ever been incorrect in the right direction? It's always wrong. And it is always much higher than the OBR forecast. So just a few days ago, actually, me and Nigel laid out what a reform government would have done if we were in government right now, what a reform chancellor would have done. We laid out £25 billion of savings that could have been made, and lo and behold, Rachel Reeves has just raised taxes by £26 billion. So what would we have done? What could she have done? Well, here's the key philosophical difference in terms of who has to bear the brunt of these difficult choices that need to be made. We keep hearing that, right? We've heard that's been the refrain of the political class for as long as I can remember. Difficult choices need to be made. Well, who should bear the brunt of those difficult choices? In Nigel Farage's view, and in my view, and in Reform's view, it should be foreign nationals who first and foremost bear the brunt of that. For too long, it has been the case of British citizens being told, pay more tax, accept worse services. Well, there's basically unlimited money available, blank cheques for foreign nationals. We saw that, for example, you've seen in the OBR document today, Home Office saying that spending on asylum accommodation is going to be $15 billion over the next decade, not the $4.5 billion, which is an already outrageous number. It's going to be $15 billion. So here's what we would have done. Number one, we would have materially cut the foreign aid budget. As we've said, of course, the United Kingdom should aspire to foreign aid. Why wouldn't we? But how can we justify spending £14 billion a year on foreign aid while, for example, 15-year-olds in Wales have a lower educational attainment than 15-year-olds in Turkey, and the British government sends hundreds of millions of pounds in foreign aid to Turkey? How does that make any sense at all? So we would put a hard cap of £1 billion on foreign aid, which would save £10 billion this year alone. Number two, we would meaningfully increase the immigration health surcharge. That is the amount of money that many visa holders pay to access our NHS, which, as we know, is already buckling under pressure and struggling. That would raise £5 billion this year alone, based on current immigration forecasts for this year. And then there's the welfare bill that we just talked about, that is a runaway train to which the British economy and all of us, sadly, are attached, and is heading for the cliffs. Well, what we would do is we would stop paying welfare payments to foreign nationals. Here's our belief. We believe that the British state exists to serve British citizens, which is an outrageous position these days in the House of Commons for the most part, and with the political class, but we make no apologies for saying it is unconscionable for British taxpayers to go to work and spend much of their day paying for a benefits bill for foreign nationals. It's totally unfair. No serious country should operate that way. And the government actually hides. The Tories did this, Labour are continuing it. They basically hide the data on foreign national usage of many aspects of state, whether that's the NHS. You know, Lee Anderson tried again just yesterday, got the same answer. Sorry, we don't track that data. What a surprise. Similarly, we don't get the data on PIP, we don't get the data on pensions, but we do get the data on universal credit. So that's why that is in our numbers. So we would cease payments to foreign nationals when it comes to universal credit, and yes, including EU nationals who are here on settled status. That would save £6 billion this fiscal year, assuming a 3-month notice period. And then we also have foreign nationals in our prisons. Over 10,000 foreign nationals languish in our jails. Most of those people, by the way, were put there under a Tory government. We should not forget that. But that number is not going down under Labour. And recent analysis suggests £640 million is the cost annually of keeping those people. So even net of deportation costs, that's about £500 million that can be saved. And then the other major saving on the theme of welfare, which must be brought under control, is our reforms that Lee and I announced in terms of PIP, where we would take people who are receiving PIP payments for non-serious anxiety and put them on back-to-work programs, where the preponderance of academic literature in Europe shows time and again that is the best possible thing you could do for them. It's pretty good for the taxpayer too. That would save £3.5 billion this year, rising to £9 billion a year by 2029. You tot all of those up, you get £25 billion, which is just £1 billion less than the amount of money Rachel Reeves has raised taxes by. In the end, the only way that we break this country out of this doom loop that it's been in is by doing the opposite of what the political class has been doing. Kind of by definition, that's what we have to do. We need to reduce spending and allow people to keep more of their wages. Right? And the political class, the Tories, did the opposite of that year after year after year. They ran a deficit. You know, they talk now about being the party of fiscal responsibility and living within our means. They ran a deficit 14 years in a row. They almost tripled the national debt. They built nothing of significance. They took the tax burden to the highest level since World War II. All Rachel Reeves is doing is continuing the decisions that the Tories made. So that is what reform would do. We would put British citizens first. And had Rachel Reeves taken up our suggestions that we published and were crystal clear and could have been implemented right now, again, that 25 billion number is for this fiscal year. It grows significantly, and most of those numbers multiply by 2029. Had she done so, she would not have had to need to raise taxes, and this doom loop could have been stopped. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zia. Now, there was a moment in her speech when she said, some people think the answer is just to cut spending. So, well, it's quite a good start, really, wouldn't it? You know, we've got a few questions here we're going to take. I know everybody's rushed for time. We'll start with Georgia Roberts from the BBC. Microphone.
Thank you. You mentioned being on the side of Alarm Clock Britain. Just wanted to ask you about the minimum wage. You suggested a few weeks ago that it might be too high, especially talking about young people. Obviously, since then, we've seen in this budget that it's increased. Would you reverse those changes? Would you cut that back? And also, if I may, yesterday the BBC spoke to one of your former classmates who says you are being fundamentally dishonest in saying you didn't directly target him in terms of racial abuse. Are you being dishonest? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll deal with that one first. No, straight up, he's the one person that said I directly abused him. Other people didn't like my views, and those that have come out who don't like my views, one happens to be a former leader of Kent County Council, another a leader of a Liberal Democrat group in the West Country, but I absolutely deny. You know, I think this guy's recollections are simply wrong. More broadly, Zia, do you want to come in?
Yeah, look, on the minimum wage, look, we've got to be real about this. I know it's very easy to paint some headline of, oh, you know, reform want young people to do less. Well, no, it's the opposite. We want young people to do better. Look what's happening to youth unemployment. Youth unemployment is almost 15%. That is the highest level of the last decade outside of the COVID collapse. Now, you tell me if you think youth unemployment at 15% is remotely acceptable. And speak to people who hire young people. What do they tell you? What the government has done is close the gap between a mid-level employee and a junior employee. And this is the problem with having people who make these decisions who have never actually had to employ anyone, never had to make those sorts of decisions. Our young people are being basically thrown onto the scrap heap. Look at how many young people under 25s is the fastest growing aspect of PIP caseload. All of these things are connected, and a whole younger generation are being betrayed. I remember my first job, I earned, what, £3.30 or something, right, minimum wage. And it wasn't because I aspired to earn £3.30 for the rest of my life, right, but it was a great start. It was work that was important to me. It was a Saturday job. And these opportunities are being robbed from our young people because of this. And here's the other point. The ballooning welfare bill, a core component to that, according to the OBR, is the rise in universal credit payments, right, and unemployment, which, by the way, the OBR in their own forecast keep at 5% through to the end of 2029. So the fact that Rachel Reeves cannot see how by endlessly raising the minimum wage she's contributing to the very black hole that she is having to fix is beyond us.
Yeah, I would say this too, that, you know, to increase the minimum wage, last year's percentage increase was even bigger than this year's. This year's 8%, it was double digits last year. To do that at the same time, that you reduce to £5,000 a year the level at which employers have to pay national insurance, the point I made was get rid of one or the other, but if you have both, and you've just compounded it again today, we already see officially 50,000 under 18s fewer in employment this time this year than this time last year. It just means fewer young people getting jobs, and that, I think, is a disaster. Catherine Foster from GBNews.
Thank you, Catherine Forster, GB News. The Tories spent 14 years telling us they'd get net migration down. It got up to nearly 1 million a year. Labour trailed about 8.5 billion pounds of tax rises before the election. We're now at, what, 66 billion plus. Trust in politicians is very, very low. Why can people really believe that you will do things differently? Because you've already junked some of the pledges you made a year ago. And also, the Prime Minister at PMQs today said reform is riddled with pro-Putin propaganda. What's your response? Why don't you order an investigation, given what happened with Nathan Gill last week?
Well, the Putin stuff's nonsense. Just because I said in 2013 that I admired him as a political operator but didn't like him as a human being, before the Ukrainian invasion, I'm a Putin supporter. By the way, the Queen met Putin after I'd said that. Whether she was a Putin sympathiser, perhaps you better ask the Prime Minister. I don't know. Did UKIP have a problem with an MEP who clearly was corrupt? Yes, it did. Did he join reform? Very briefly. In Wales, he did, and very briefly he was leader. I can't investigate UKIP in the European Parliament in 2018. How do I do that? Can I read people's emails? Can I take their mobile phones? How on earth can I investigate that? What I would welcome, though, is a broader investigation, because I'm quite worried about Chinese influence. I'm worried about people that should be on spy trials that suddenly are not. I'm worried about a giant embassy over some of the most important communication cables and sections in London. I'm worried very much indeed by the level of Chinese influence there appears to be, including an MP who's taken 500,000 quid from a Chinese spy, but we don't talk about that. So if we're going to have an investigation into foreign money, it would need to be done by the authorities in this country, and they would need to have real power. Real power. I haven't got the power to go back, 7 or 8 years and investigate people's messages. I simply can't do it. It's just not possible. Okay, Charanpreet Kaira, ITV.
Welcome to this budget special of the Martin Daubney Show. That was Nigel Farage and Zia Yousaf from Reform UK holding a press conference in reaction to the budget. Quick lines from that. Nigel Farage called it an Alice through the looking glass budget. Working people will be subsidising a huge benefits bill, he said. No acceptance at all that net zero is damaging Britain. He called the budget an assault on aspiration, an assault on savings. It will kill off the private pensions sector. He then issued a warning: the exodus of talent will continue and accelerate. Don't be deceived that your energy bills will go down by £150. They said they would go down by £300. They've actually increased by £300. And briefly there, Zia Yousaf added it was the leakiest budget of all time, of course referring that to OBR leak. This thing here was leaked out to the press before Rachel Reeves even got to dispatch box. And he said this was an omni-shambles budget by an omni-shambles chancellor. Not expecting a Christmas card there from Rachel Reeves. Welfare spending will be £27.5 billion higher by 2035, he added. And one final point I thought was very interesting: £1.8 billion in today's budget earmarked for the introduction of digital ID, in itself very controversial. We learned will be taken from the Home Office budget. The Home Office has had its budget frozen, and Zia Yousaf made the point there. Wouldn't it be better to spend £1.8 billion potentially on controlling our borders rather than a digital ID scheme? Let's get back to full reaction of today's incredible budget now. I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, and delighted to be joined by my old friend, the Labour MP for Bolsover, Natalie Fleet. Always a pleasure to see you, my darling.
Thanks for having me.
Right. Let's start from the beginning. A lot of people have been saying this is a high tax budget. In fact, it is a record high tax rate we have now in the UK, 38.3%. Never been that higher even than under the Conservatives. £8.3 billion in tax rises by dragging more people into paying higher tax brackets. Not a direct increase on the penny on the pound, but more people pay more. 9 million people will be paying more tax under this budget. 780,000 were dragged into basic tax from not paying anything at all, and 920,000 dragged into higher tax rates. Natalie Fleet, my question to you is simple. The Chancellor, the Prime Minister, the whole Labour Party said you would not be increasing taxes on working people. You have. You told a lie, didn't you?
We didn't. We said that we wouldn't increase tax, VAT or national insurance, and we haven't done that today. Instead, we have absolutely focused on sorting out the cost of living. This is the first Parliament in a while that living standards are going to improve. This was a proper cost of living budget that was delivered in a Labour way. I was just so pleased, sat behind the Chancellor, to see her in front of us. We fought to be in government for so long, we're finally here and this is what we're doing. So she had 3 things that she desperately wanted to do. She delivered on them all. She wanted to cut the debt. 1 in every £10 being spent on debt is ridiculous. She wanted to put money into the NHS, sort out the NHS, more appointments, more doctors, more nurses, thank God, because we don't want any more stories of old ladies falling over like they did in my constituency and being left on the floor waiting for an ambulance for 14 hours. She didn't vote Conservative again after that. She'd voted Conservative for her whole life. And then the cost of living measures were absolutely incredible. So this is a budget that says those with the broadest shoulders will pay the most. You saw that in the mansion tax. There are other taxes as well. There's a bingo exemption that means that you're not going to be paying extra tax if you play bingo like so many do in my area. But we've got British jobs, we've got a national minimum wage increasing, living wage increasing, £150 off of energy bills. There is so much that will benefit people in my area. And today feels a lot of the things that Zia Youssef just said there and about, he wasn't very happy. It did seem very low energy press conference, and it did seem like they were very much shouting, look at us, we're still here, because they didn't have any role in this whatsoever. We are absolutely delivering for working people, and by the end of the Parliament, they'll look back and they'll either feel better off or they won't.
You're also delivering for people who aren't working. £15 billion benefit bonanza. The 2-child cap has been lifted. That's the £3 billion cost. Benefits up 4.4%. Nobody probably watching this show has got a 4% pay rise this year. That's another £6 billion. Benefits cuts, U-turn, £5 billion. The winter fuel allowance, U-turn, £1.25 billion. That's a £15 billion giveaway. That's being paid for by working people. I put it to you. This is a budget paid for by the working people for the work shy.
So I am not happy about any of that. What Rachel said in the chamber today is that you can't hold us accountable when we've had 14 months for what they did in 14 years. So much of that is about legacy benefits, legacy increases. The welfare bill needs tackling. We've started, but we've got 2 reviews coming up, but we've already started. I loved that she said that the Motability scheme would scrap luxury car brands with immediate effect. Why did we need to do that? Why did the Tories ever think that it would be OK to have a BMW or an Audi because you've got a very mild disability? Then you've got we've got the youth guarantee coming up. We're doing so much to benefit people and bring that welfare bill down. And we've got 2 reviews coming. By the end of this Parliament, we will have absolutely got control of the welfare bill. That's another area that they let get out of control. So there was a huge backlash. Backbench Labour MPs wouldn't allow a benefits cut to go through. And a lot of people are saying today that this is a Labour budget for Labour MPs. Labour MPs who can't lose votes by slashing benefits in their constituencies. And so isn't that the point? It's like a lot of people watching this show are sick to the back teeth of getting up in the morning and paying for the benefits bills. We had a guest on yesterday who was on a building site at 6 in the morning. Everybody in these areas where he works getting out of bed at 11 o'clock. They're in their PIP cars. They're shuffling around in onesies, doing the school run, and they're back to bed. This is it's a pastiche of a broken Britain, and it's propped up by a ballooning benefits bill paid for by those who go to work. You know, in Bolsover, Ashfield, all those seats, people are sick to death of people on the take. So this is a Labour budget that people voted for change. They voted for things to be different because they were sick of all the things that you're talking about. A benefits bill that's completely out of control. Instead,
but you can't clamp down on that because backbenchers won't allow it.
we're tackling it. We're going to make things easier. It is on the two-child benefit cap. I've spoken before publicly about the fact that I grew up in poverty, and I know that that has such a massive impact on kids in my community. I go into schools and there are 10 children in every class, not the exception like me that struggles, but 10 children in every class. So the plan is make sure that those children aren't punished for what's happening to their parents. Note that their parents, 3/4 of their parents are working. These benefits are going to working people. And then improve the living standards and reduce the cost of living for working people. Make better jobs, British jobs, so they don't need those benefits anymore. That's what we'll be looking at towards the end of this Parliament.
A lot of people will be hoping that's the case, because in terms of the two-child cap, 59% of those who will receive it, there's at least one adult in work, but there are 200,000 jobless families, and it means that almost 2/3, 300,000 families have 3 kids, a quarter, that's 117,000 families have 4 kids. There are 18,260 families in Britain who have 6 or more kids, and they will net 14 grand extra per year now from the taxpayer for having 6 kids. It just says to people who work hard, people like myself, I've got 2 kids. I couldn't have afforded 3 kids. I stopped having kids. I would love to have more kids. I made the sensible choice. If I can't feed them, don't breed them, to use that old-fashioned phrase. So why are we living in a country now where people are just encouraged to churn out babies? How can that be right for people who pay the bill?
So I would have liked 6 children as well, but instead I had to stop at 4. And I love having my children. But the best thing that children can do, the biggest alleviator of child poverty, is to be in a family that works. That's how things get better. You've got the role models in the house, the income is higher.
Totally.
So
100%.
What we've done, what I love to see, is we've put so much more supportive action into getting people into work. I don't want to see any talent wasted on the scrap heap. There could be a cure for cancer in amongst all of those thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that aren't working. There's just talent there that we can't afford to write off. We have already seen welfare change started this Parliament. We've got the youth guarantee. That means if you've got a child, an 18, 21-year-old out of work for 18 months, the government will guarantee them a job. The more we can do to get people into work, the better it is for those children in poverty, for those families and for the economy.
When you look back, particularly at the first budget, that was eye-watering, enough. 40 billion quid of tax in that, the biggest budget of all time in modern history at any rate. Rachel Reeves promised this would be a once-in-a-Parliament event. It wasn't. 30 billion today. She's now the 70 billion pound stick-up chancellor. No chancellor has ever taken this much money off the British public.
I can't believe that she pulled off not raising taxes on working people. She said she wouldn't raise income tax, national insurance, VAT, and she hasn't. And the fact that instead she's looked at taxes like the mansion tax and said, how can we take money off of those that have the broadest shoulders? I think she's done the right thing, and she's done all she can to protect working people, a proper Labour budget, and make sure that everybody pays their fair share, but is not targeted at those on the lowest incomes.
Okay, Natalie Fleet, I always love having you in the studio. Nigel Nelson, you will get a word in at some point, Edgeworth. I just love rabbiting into Natalie Fleet. Thank you very, very much. Now, lots more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including GBNews national reporter Jack Carson is finding out what the people of Lichfield make of today's budget.
Sorry, this fell out halfway through.
Of course, this is the centre of England. People here talking all about how this budget cake has been divided up. We'll be speaking to a cafe manager after your latest news headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. Back to Jack and his cakes very shortly. First, though, the headlines. Rachel Reeves' budget has landed, overshadowed by an unprecedented leak. The OBR accidentally released its forecasts 40 minutes early, forcing an apology and now a formal investigation. Rachel Reeves outlined sweeping plans, including frozen tax thresholds, new annual charges on £2 million and £5 million homes, a mileage duty for electric vehicles, pension tax changes above £2,000 and a cap on cash ISAs. She also confirmed the two-child benefit cap will end in 2026 as growth forecasts are downgraded. Farmers have driven tractors into central London today in open defiance of police orders. Several arrests were made after agricultural vehicles breached protest restrictions. It comes after Rachel Reeves introduced a 20% tax on agricultural properties over £1 million, a move the farmers warn could wipe out small family-run farms. A man who drove into a crowd of Liverpool fans has admitted all 31 charges. 54-year-old Paul Doyle injured more than 130 people during the club's victory parade on the 26th of May. Prosecutors call it an act of calculated violence. He'll be sentenced in December with a lengthy term inevitable. And at least 13 people are dead and 15 injured after a major fire in Hong Kong. More than 700 firefighters have been battling the blaze, which claimed the life of a 37-year-old firefighter, described by officials as dedicated and gallant. And Donald Trump is defending his special envoy after a leaked recording. The clip appears to show Steve Witkoff advising a senior Russian official on how to appeal to the president. Trump says Witkoff was simply doing what a deal-maker does. The revised peace plan for Ukraine is now back on the table, and Witkoff returns to Moscow next week for further talks. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with a full roundup at 4.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A cloudy and damp afternoon to come for many of us after that bright start this morning, but it is turning milder and breezier. That's due to this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic that will bring some particularly strong winds through Thursday night and into Friday. Ahead of that, though, we've got this warm front bringing that milder air, but also outbreaks of rain, particularly across western areas throughout this evening, but it will push into the southeast overnight tonight around midnight, but the rain here will be relatively light. Now elsewhere across the northwest we'll see some heavy pulses of rain through the night, but with a blanket of cloud across the country it's going to be a much milder night. An early minimum across southeastern areas, temperatures actually closer to 9 or 10 degrees by 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now Thursday is looking relatively cloudy, breezy and for some of us quite wet actually, particularly across northwestern areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain throughout the morning, particularly across the Highlands and the Western Isles, where there will be quite a brisk southerly wind as well. Cloudy and damp across parts of Northern Ireland, some heavy pulses of rain across western facing hills, parts of the Pennines, and some drizzly outbreaks of rain across the high ground of Wales too, as parts of Cornwall could also see some outbreaks of rain first thing. But further south and east, we will see plenty of dry weather throughout the day, but it's going to be a much cloudier day on Thursday, and the breeze will pick up as the day goes on, particularly across more northwestern areas. This band of rain will push through Thursday afternoon as well, bringing a spell of heavier rain, but it is going to be a milder day wherever you are. Some sunshine actually breaking through across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland to end the day, but there's a risk of further heavy downpours. Now we have got a wind warning in force through Thursday afternoon into Friday. Gusts could reach in excess of 75 miles per hour. Spell of wet weather potentially moving across southern areas into the weekend, and wherever you are, it's looking like it will turn colder again. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for helping us to reach 8 million followers and subscribers across our social media channels. That's 8 million fearless Brits standing up for what really matters.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M876 northbound, a collision has resulted in restrictions right after the junction with the M80. The A55 at Britannia Bridge enforces a speed limit of 30 miles per hour. Worcestershire's M42 southbound has experienced an accident between Junction 2 and Junction 1. One of 3 lanes is currently shut. In Milton Keynes, a broken-down vehicle on the M1 northbound between Junction 14 and Junction 15 has closed one of 4 lanes. And on the trains, cross-country services face disruptions between Bournemouth and Brockenhurst, while Northern has replaced trains with buses between Corkickle and Whitehaven. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 3:43. You with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. And let's cross straight now to Lichfield for more budget reaction. GB News national reporter Jack Carson is there. Jack, what are the good folk of Lichfield telling you about today's budget?
Well, Well, thank you very much, Martin. We are quite literally in the centre of the country. You can't really get more middle England than this, can you? Of course, we've been speaking to businesses already on the back of course, that budget by the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. Let's get some more reaction now with Clive Whipps, who's the cafe manager here at the Coffee House. I mean, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, what are some of the things that you picked up on that budget? I mean, how are you feeling after what Rachel Reeves said today?
Well, it's another poke in the eye, really, to a small family business. It happens every year. I mean, we're all in favour of increased wages, but it has a big impact. It's going to cost us another £2,500 a year to pay the increase in the minimum wage. So we're going to have to do something about that. It'll either be increase our prices, which will make us less competitive, or we'll have to do something with our staff and reduce the wages bill accordingly. So you know, it is difficult. You know, they squeeze us every year, and that on top of all the increases for gas and electric, you can obviously and water especially, you can see that you know, things could be a lot better. It seems like the government don't consider us as a small family business, and you know, we'd like it to change basically to get some benefits. You know, there are thousands of businesses like ours who tend to be squeezed at this time of year and throughout the year by amenities, and you know, it would be nice to have something positive to say, but I'm afraid at the moment it's negative again.
So how does that then make you feel? Because obviously, as you were saying, you are a small family-run business. You know, you take on a few people to make sure this cafe can run smoothly. I mean, how would that make you feel, having to consider possibly letting some of those staff go?
Yeah, well, obviously it's not very nice. You know, we have good relationships with our staff. You know, we have lots of regular customers who get to know our staff, and you know, for our regulars to see less of our staff because we've had to reduce costs, it's not very good. You know, it's a downward trend. You know, we'd like things to be upward and happy and smiley, but at the moment, you know, especially on a day like today, it's completely the opposite. Very negative at the moment.
All right, Clive Whipps, thank you so much for giving us that reaction. You know, here in Lichfield, as we were saying, Martin, in the middle of the country, these are, you know, just normal people, as you say here from Clive, trying to run a family business, and it's clear that this rise to the national living wage is really going to have an impact for him here in Lichfield.
Thanks, Jack Gosson there. A Lichfield cafe owner feels like he's been kicked in the baristas. Now let's speak with GB News Yorkshire and Humberside reporter Anna Riley, who's live for us in Scarborough. Anna, what are they telling you in Scarborough today?
Yes, Martin. Well, we're here in Scarborough because it's the UK's retirement capital. 27% of people here in Scarborough are aged 65 or over. So we came to speak to pensioners, to people over the age of 65 about what that budget means for them. And the key things to come out for pensioners in the budget is that increase to the state pension, rising by 4.8% in April to be in line with average wages. That means that the new flat rate pension for those who reach state pension after April 2016 will increase to £241.30 a week, or £12,547.60 a year. That's a rise of £574.60, and it'll affect around 4.1 million pensions. Those on the old basic state pension, for those who reach state pension age before April 2016, it'll go up to £184.90 a week, or £9,614.80 a year. That's a rise of £439.40, and that'll affect 8.8 million pensioners. I spoke to some pensioners earlier here in Scarborough to get their take on that.
The problem is everything else is going up as well as tax. They put the budget, with the budget that's coming in, food prices will go up, petrol prices, well, they're going to stay frozen, I think. But if we're taxed on our pension, you've got less available income. So it's tough. for the people who are on the, if you've got a big private pension, you're okay. If you don't, it's going to be a struggle.
No, they just keep moving the goalposts, don't they? You know what I mean? So I'm 64 now. I should have retired 4 years ago. That's what my plan was, when I started work when I was 16. And now it's like getting further and further away. So it's going to be 67 now, I guess. It's like, oh my word. So even though I'm his full-time carer, I've still got to keep on working.
So pensioners there saying, yes, it is going up, but so is everything else. So are they being given in one hand and it being taken out in the other? Also for pensioners as well, Chancellor Rachel Reeves confirmed an overhaul to the state pension regime for thousands of retirees living abroad, expected to pay more to access the full payment entitlement. And there's been a change to the ISA limits as well, the £12,000 limit going up to vice versa, going up to 20,000. If you're over 65, you can still have that £20,000 allowance. So some good benefits there for pensioners, but people saying if the cost of living's going up, are they really benefiting?
Thank you, Anna Ryder, there on a windswept Scarborough beach. Go get yourself one of those legendary Scarborough fish suppers to get warmed up before the prices go up. Anna Ryder, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Well, I'm still joined in the studio by GBNews political commentator Nigel Nelson and the Labour MP for Bolsover, of course, Natalie Fleet. Nigel, I'm going to come to you. You haven't got a word in so far. I've been gassing away with Natalie Fleet all show long. Let's get your initial take. For me, it's all about the income tax today.
I think so. I mean, I think that is the big ticket rise, £8 billion for her. She hasn't had to raise income tax, which is good. That would have been a manifesto breach. I think this stretches the manifesto like elastic, but it's not actually breaking it. We are going to have to wait a few days for the budget to settle and see just exactly how this actually takes. We want to hear from the Tories. Are they going to stop it? And we're talking about an election in the latest 2029. The threshold will stay in place until 31. So we're potentially talking about a new government taking over and dealing with that. We didn't hear a thing from Reform about that. They didn't say they would actually abolish it or go back on it. Interesting to hear from the Tories. And the bottom line for Labour, really, and as you've been hearing from various people that GBNews has just talked to, the bottom line for the next election is, do people feel better off? Mm-hmm. If they do, Labour gets another term. If they don't, we don't know what will happen.
Says here on the budget document itself, this mighty tome I have in my hand, strong foundations and a secure future. Are we going to have a secure future, though, if people can't plan for their futures? Look at the raid on pensions, on ISAs, on dividends. Not everybody has shares, but those who do will be getting their pockets picked by this budget. There's been a great British takeaway by the Chancellor today, and not a lot given to those working people or to retirees. And you're right, if people don't feel better off, then they won't vote for this party again. But more people are paying more tax now than ever before in British history. Is that really a secure future, or is it a country where people are living hand to mouth?
Had Rachel Reeves not ruled out raising income tax and VAT in the manifesto, we wouldn't really be in this position. So our only alternative is to go for smaller taxes, which obviously specifically hit smaller groups of people.
But the electorate don't buy the notion that taxes haven't gone up. They've just gone up in a way that wasn't sort of. It's not the big taxes, but they're being mugged off.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. There's no question that taxes have gone up, but they've gone up in a way that if it had been income tax, you kind of spread the pain evenly, and so the moaning is sort of by everybody. With these, it'll be specific groups who will complain about it. The gamblers might complain. If you drink or you smoke, you get hit here. So, I mean, but it's the only way of actually raising the money. If not from here, where do you get it from?
OK, Natalie Fleet, final word to you in this hour. We're waiting for a press conference from the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. She was very heavily criticised in Chamber today by Kemi Badenoch. She absolutely tore into her. She said she was incompetent, she was a bit of a joke Chancellor, and she ought to resign, she ought to go. Of course, Rachel Reeves is resolute. She was a Chancellor not only at the next budget, but in 2 years' time. But this budget isn't just about Labour Party's future, it's about Rachel Reeves's future. If this budget doesn't deliver, you think she's toast?
I think that you are absolutely right, Nigel, when you just said this is a budget that people need to be able to feel. So I just love that she focused so heavily on cost of living. One thing we haven't mentioned so far is the BCSSS pension that, there's over 1,000 ex-miners, men and women in my constituency, that are going to be better off. I want this to be a budget that people come to me and talk about how they feel better off as a result. That's when we'll know that we've really delivered.
Gamblers won't be better off. And what about sort of ridiculous...
But there's a bingo exemption. I really want to shout about that because we've got an old bingo hall in my constituency. I'll be going to bingo in Shirebrook at Christmas. We do like a bit of bingo.
Talking about bingo, two fat ladies, the sugar tax. Shaker taker, she's been called, taking money from milkshakes. It is a bit ridiculous to go for ridiculous things like lattes and fizzy drinks. Look what happened to George Osborne. The patty tax did for him.
This budget is all about things being fair and us making sure that we've risen the necessary taxes in the right places. I think that she's struck the chord.
OK, thank you very much. We have to leave it there and at your feet. Still to come, we'll cross to Easington to find out what the people of Easington make of the budget.
That's right. This part of County Durham was traditionally a very rich part of the country, but it's fell on hard times in recent years. What do the people of Easington make of what the Chancellor has had to say? Let's find out after the break.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A cloudy and damp afternoon to come for many of us after that bright start this morning, but it is turning milder and breezier. That's due to this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic that will bring some particularly strong winds through Thursday night and into Friday. Ahead of that, though, we've got this warm front bringing that milder air, but also outbreaks of rain, particularly across western areas throughout this evening, but it will push into the southeast overnight tonight around midnight, but the rain here will be relatively light. Now elsewhere across the northwest we'll see some heavy pulses of rain through the night, but with a blanket of cloud across the country it's going to be a much milder night. An early minimum across southeastern areas, temperatures actually closer to 9 or 10 degrees by 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now Thursday is looking relatively cloudy, breezy and for some of us quite wet actually, particularly across northwestern areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain throughout the morning, particularly across the Highlands and the Western Isles where there will be quite a brisk southerly wind as well. Cloudy and damp across parts of Northern Ireland, some heavy pulses of rain across western facing hills, parts of the Pennines and some drizzly outbreaks of rain across the high ground of Wales too, as parts of Cornwall could also see some outbreaks of rain first thing. But further south and east we will see plenty of dry weather throughout the day, but it's going to be a much cloudier day on Thursday and the breeze will pick up as the day goes on, particularly across more northwestern areas. This band of rain will push through Thursday afternoon as well, bringing a spell of heavier rain, but it is going to be a milder day wherever you are. Some sunshine actually breaking through across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland to end the day, but there's a risk of further heavy downpours. Now we have got a wind warning in force through Thursday afternoon into Friday. Gusts could reach in excess of 75 miles per hour. Spell of wet weather potentially moving across southern areas into the weekend, and wherever you are it's looking like it will turn colder again. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsor.
Thank you, Britain, for sharing over 5 million comments on your say, because when you talk, we listen.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A90 northbound south of Lawrencekirk has restrictions due to a police incident. The A55 on Britannia Bridge is limited to 30 miles per hour. In Cumbria, the A66 eastbound experiences 10-minute delays until 4:15. Derbyshire has congestion on the A38 southbound between the A50 and A5132, causing 10-minute delays. On the trains, cross-country faces disruptions between Bournemouth and Brockenhurst, and northern services are replaced by buses between Corkickle and Whitehaven, with delays between Liverpool Lime Street and Huyton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. on Budget Day. And here's what's coming up on today's show. Carrying her red box of doom, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves unleashed a blistering £30 billion tax raid, but she maintained that she was making the right choices.
Yet to see a credible or a fairer alternative plan for working people. These are my choices, the right choices for a fairer, a stronger and more secure Britain.
And meanwhile, 1 million extra workers will pay a high rate of income tax as Rachel Reeves confirmed that she would freeze tax thresholds for another 3 years.
To break the cycle of austerity, we need a fair and a sustainable tax system. That does mean that today I am asking everyone to make a contribution.
And as was widely leaked to, well, everyone on the planet, the Chancellor has introduced a mansion tax on properties worth over £2 million.
This new surcharge will raise over £400 million by 2031.
And the Chancellor also announced that the two-child benefit cap will be scrapped, one of the most significant welfare changes in nearly a decade.
We on this side of the House do not believe that the solution to a broken welfare system is to punish the most vulnerable. We are lifting 450,000 children out of poverty with the end of the two-child limit.
And meanwhile, the Tory leader Kemi Badenoch blasted back and called for Rachel Reeves to resign.
After this budget, she will go down as the country's worst ever chancellor.
Meanwhile, the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride called for a criminal investigation as the OBR sensationally leaks the budget before Rachel Reeves even got to the dispatch box.
This report contains market-sensitive information.
Yes, fine.
It is utterly outrageous that this has happened.
Mel Stride will join me in the studio later on in the show for full reaction, and also any moment now we're expecting to hear from the Chancellor Rachel Reeves herself, giving her first press conference since that budget. But earlier on today, Nigel Farage, he also put the boot into the budget.
He's managed to increase taxes in the space of just over a year, nearly more than any other chancellor in history, and they had much longer to do this.
And despite a last-minute Metropolitan Police ban last night, the farmers have ploughed on to protest against today's budget.
Have to keep standing up for farming until there are changes.
We, the people, are the power, aren't we? You know, if we don't stand up now, we're not going to have an open house chance.
And the People's Channel has been all around Britain asking the great British public for their immediate reaction to this budget. First off, let's go to Jack Carson in Lichfield.
Well, here we are in Lichfield, the centre of England, really, the most middle place you can get in the country. We've been speaking to businesses and people here. They've already told us they're worried about the months ahead.
We're here in Scarborough in North Yorkshire. It's the UK's retirement capital. We've been speaking to over 65s about what the budget means to them with that rise in the state pension.
Meanwhile, County Durham is a place that has been slipping away from the Labour Party's grip politically. What do the people of Easington make of what the Chancellor had to say?
Thank you, Tom. Now let's get straight to Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, who's giving a press conference.
Question post-budget, and I'm going to deliver on my word, Gemma, so I'll talk directly to the people of West Yorkshire, but especially Leeds.
Yes, well, it's good to see you keep a promise, Chancellor. I was talking to people on the High Street in Pudsey yesterday in your constituency, and it won't surprise you, they are really struggling with the cost of living. They see the price of things go up and up and up, and wages haven't kept pace with it. Businesses are still reeling after the measures in last year's budget, and today extending that freeze on income tax thresholds will really hit working people. So when you're back up north, what will you say to your constituents? Can you look them in the eye and say things are going to get better because of the budget?
So for people in Leeds West and Pudsey and people all around the country, in Yorkshire and beyond, there will be a reduction of £150 in your energy bills from April next year. That is tangible difference, money in the pockets of working people. And in addition to that, we're freezing NHS prescription charges. We're freezing train fares. So if you're getting on the train in Bramley or in New Pudsey, it's going to be a bit cheaper than it would have been next year. And we're doing all of those things because I know that the cost of living is still a real challenge for people, day to day, week to week, month to month, and that's why in this budget I am taking direct action to tackle the cost of living. But also, if you are being seen at LGI or St James's Hospital or going to your GP surgery in Armley or Bramley, then also people will know that we're putting money into our NHS and those new neighbourhood health centres to take the pressure off the hospitals and have people treated closer to home. Next question, Shahab.
Chancellor, there was a lot of pressure on you and your government in the lead up to this budget. Plenty of backbenchers have expressed frustration and anger. In this budget, you have scrapped the two-child benefit cap, which has meant that some of them are quite happy. Do you think you've done enough to appease all of them?
My focus in the budget is on the country and the people who elected us into government last July. I know that the number one concern for people is the cost of living, which is why we've taken £150 off of people's bills by removing some of those levies and the eco scheme, which has been an utter failure, and using that money to cut people's bills. But just chatting here to some of the nurses and other staff at the hospital, the two-child limit and getting rid of that has a benefit beyond those families, because so many patients who end up in hospital, so many kids who end up in hospital are there because of respiratory conditions, because they may be in poor quality temporary accommodation. The cost to local councils of that, but also the cost to the NHS. And in our schools as well, when I talk to teachers, especially in primary schools, about kids coming into school not ready to learn because of the conditions at home, whether that's a cold house or not enough food to eat. So getting rid of the two-child limit is about addressing child poverty and also reducing some of those costs on other parts of the system, including in our NHS and in our schools. Beth.
Thank you. Chancellor, today you've announced that you're extending the freeze on tax thresholds. It will raise £8.3 billion. In the budget in 2024, you said extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their pay slips. I am keeping every single promise on tax I made in our manifesto. I say to working people, I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT. I will not increase your income tax. Today you've just broken your manifesto pledges and your promise to millions of workers in the budget last year you would not extend the threshold. How in good conscience can you stay on in your job?
In the manifesto, we were very clear. It was the rates of income tax, national insurance and VAT. But I'm not going to get into semantics. I recognise that we are asking people to contribute more by freezing those allowances. They were already frozen by the previous government from 2021 to 2028, and we're freezing them for a further 3 years. And I do recognise that I was asking ordinary people to pay a little bit more. But I've managed to keep that contribution as low as I possibly can by closing loopholes and asking those with the broadest shoulders to pay more. That's why there will be a surcharge on properties worth more than £2 million. It's why we're increasing taxes on savings, dividends and property income. And it's why as well we're getting a grip of some of the waste and inefficiency in the welfare budget by taking luxury cars out of Motability, more face-to-face assessments for disability benefits, so we keep that contribution from working people as low as possible. And this year and in the years going forward, we're taking £150 a year off of people's energy bills for all families, working families and pensioners, and we're able to do that by taking those levies off of people's bills.
Can you just acknowledge you've broken a manifesto pledge? You have. The IFS have said you have.
Well, if you read the manifesto, we're very clear. We say the rates of income tax, national insurance and VAT. But if you're asking, does this have a cost for working people, I acknowledge it does. I said that in the budget last year. I'm not going to pretend otherwise today, but I do think that is the right decision in the circumstances we face. The OBR have today revised down their estimates of productivity and growth by 0.3 percentage points. They say that that will take out £16 billion of tax revenue we would otherwise have brought in, and they are very clear that is not because of any decision that this government has taken in the last 16 months. It is what's happened in the previous 14 years. Brexit, the pandemic, and frankly the austerity and chaos from the previous government. And we're all having to pay a price to that. And it's my job to make sure that the numbers add up so that we can ensure we grow our economy, keep interest rates falling and keep inflation down as well. Joe.
Chancellor, Joe Pike, BBC News. The income tax threshold freeze will see millions of people paying more tax while at the same time benefits are being increased. Is that really fair to working people? And a second question, if I may, when did you find out that the OBR had unveiled your budget before you had?
So, as I've already said to Beth, I do recognise that freezing the income tax and national insurance thresholds for a further 3 years after the Conservatives froze them for 7 years does mean that we're asking people to pay a little bit more. We're freezing them from 2028 and we are putting money in people's pockets now by taking money off their energy bills. And that is the right thing to do because it helps bring down inflation and helps people now when I know that the cost of living is still a real challenge. And in answer to your question around the OBR publishing my budget before I delivered it, I found out when I was in the chamber. Paul.
Hello, Chancellor. Look, the OBR says that you will take on the £6 billion a year cost for special educational needs, but you provided no explanation as to where this money is going to come from. So a school is going to have to stump up the huge amounts of cash themselves, or will you guarantee that per pupil spending on your watch will not go down?
So for the next 2 years, and I set this out very clearly in the spending review, we've extended the statutory override for local authorities and we absorbed that money in the spending review. Bridget Phillipson, the Secretary of State for Education, is reviewing at the moment SEND. That's not about money, that's about creating a system that actually works for kids, their parents, for schools, and she will set out that the results of that early in the new year. I believe that we should, wherever possible, possible, integrate children into mainstream schools. That's not always possible, but I would like to see that happening more. But it'll be up to Bridget to set out those reforms. But as I say, we have extended the statutory override for the next 2 years, and we put more money into the schools budget in the spending review just before the summer. Lewis from ITV Digital.
Hello, Chancellor. You are raising minimum wage, which sounds like good news, but we've got an unemployment problem in this country, and you are freezing national insurance thresholds for employers. So isn't that just going to stop businesses from hiring people and drive up unemployment?
Well, we've increased the national minimum wage for 18 to 20-year-olds from £10 to £10.85 an hour, and we've increased the main rate of the national living wage from £12.21 to £12.71 an hour, giving a pay rise to, I think, around 2.5 million of the lowest paid people in our country. And that is the right thing to do, because if you go out to work every day, you should be able to pay the bills and put food on the table and pay the rent or the mortgage. But we know that that's still not the reality for many people today, and we're still not paying the minimum wage and the national living wage is still not the rates of the real living wage that is calculated independently. So I think it's the right thing to do, to increase those rates, to put more money in people's pockets. And actually the biggest concern, I think, for businesses is that consumers don't have enough money in their pockets, and so they're not spending on the discretionary things, whether that's a meal out, a night out, a weekend away with the family, or spending in the local high street and the local shops. So putting more money in the pockets of working people, I think, is good economic policy, as well as the right thing to do by some of the poorest people in our country. I'll take a couple more questions. Ryan?
Chancellor, you said that you wouldn't increase taxes on working people, but we know today that the benefits bill up by £9 billion, asylum accommodation costs also up. Are working people, like the people stood behind you, are they paying the price for your failure to deal with particularly the benefits bill?
We're not going to leave the welfare system unchanged. Under the previous government, in the last 5 years of the Conservative government, spending on welfare increased by 1 percentage point of GDP, equivalent to £88 billion. The OBR, I think, in their forecast showed that as a share of GDP, welfare spending will be broadly flat, but the system's not working, it's broken. I made some reforms today, so that if you live abroad, you can't pay nominal amounts of money to access the state pension, more face-to-face assessments for disability benefits, which Mel Stride, when he was Work and Pension Secretary, got rid of, reforming Motability so it meets its original purpose of affordable leases for disabled people, not subsidising Mercedes-Benz. And so those sorts of changes are the right things to do. But we also today have introduced funding for the Youth Guarantee, which means that a young person will be guaranteed either a place at college, an apprenticeship or personalised support, and if after 18 months they haven't got into work, they will be guaranteed a job but not benefits. And that, again, is an important reform to help deal with the issue of too many young people not in education, employment or training. And sorry, on welfare, you know, we've already managed to claw back money from the contract signed by the previous Tory government, and I think we've managed to claw back something like £70 million, and we're going to phase out the use of hotels entirely during the course of this Parliament, saving us money, and that was reflected in the spending review settlement in the summer. So, look, we do want to create a welfare system that is actually working, supporting the most vulnerable and empowering people to get back into work. And I want a welfare system that is fair and stops the illegal trafficking of people into this country. Sophie?
Yes, thank you. Sophie Huskisson from The Mirror. Unison Union have said that freezing income tax thresholds does the opposite of putting more money in working people's pockets. Do you admit that you could have been braver in targeting the wealthiest in Britain?
So, as I've said, I do recognise that we are asking everyone to make a contribution for the security of our country and the brightness of its future. I said that in the speech today, and I also said in the speech today that I'm not going to pretend that that is not asking for a contribution. The Tories, when they were in office, froze the thresholds and said nothing to see here. I'm being open and honest that that is, from 2028, freezing thresholds for a bit longer, and that does have a cost. But we're putting money now in the pockets of working people, with £150 off their bills, money off of rail fares, of frozen prescription charges, as well as fully funding the childcare offer of 30 hours of free childcare for preschool children, more free school meals for 500,000 kids whose parents are on universal credit, rolling out universal breakfast clubs at all primary schools. All these things about putting money in the pockets of ordinary working people, as well as the increases in the national minimum wage and the national living wage that I've set out today. But look, you can see the distribution analysis tables in the budget documentation that came out today. This is a highly progressive budget. The biggest winners are those on the lowest incomes, and those who were asking to pay more are those with the broadest shoulders, those who have properties worth more than £2 million. The landlord who pays less tax than their tenant. Those are the right things to do, and they're progressive reforms. And because of that, we've managed to keep the contribution from working people as low as possible. Dan, from Politico.
Hello, Chancellor. A lot of the tax rises that more than half of the income to the Treasury from the tax rises you've announced today actually takes effect, sort of comes in after the next general election in sort of 2030, 2031. Do you think it's credible to suggest that this will definitely happen? And given things are so volatile in politics, will you still be Chancellor then?
I don't think anything comes in that late, actually. So the freezes are 28, 29 onwards. The council tax surcharge comes in a couple of years' time, as does the other changes. So these are all coming in within this Parliament. When you're making tax reform, it's often not possible to change those rates overnight. And of course, the thresholds are towards the end of the Parliament because the Tories already froze them. But we're also making savings right now through getting rid of things like police and crime commissioners, reducing the cost of local government with fewer councillors, as well as selling land that the government no longer has a need for. So there are savings we're making right now, as well as asking public services to make efficiency savings worth a further 0.5% from 28-29. So these are, and what you see actually in the forecast is the deficit coming down every single year, because I think it is important to show that we are consolidating. We're not going to be spending more than we can afford, and the IMF, I believe, have confirmed that we have the fastest rate of consolidation of our public finances of any country in the G7. I'm afraid I can do one more. Thank you, Phoebe. She's the real boss. Yeah.
Anna Mihailova, Times Radio. A year ago, after a big tax-raising budget, you said you would not be coming back for more taxes. You've just announced £26 billion worth of tax rises, including dragging hundreds of thousands of people into basic rate income tax, nearly 1 million people into higher rate tax. Can you now tell people, reassure people, you will not be back for more?
Well, look, last year I had to fill the £22 billion black hole in the public finances left by the Conservatives. What we didn't know then, as well as that black hole in the public finances, that actually productivity growth was weaker than the Office of Budget Responsibility then forecast. They've been really clear in their documentation today, available before the budget, that productivity forecast based on the past is now expected to be 0.3 percentage points lower a year. That hits growth to the same amount and reduces tax revenues by £16 billion a year. And although I believe that we can beat those forecasts, we've beat them this year. The OBR said the economy was going to grow by 1% this year. We've grown it by 1.5%. And I'm determined we'll beat the forecasts again. The Conservatives' legacy is not our country's destiny, but we also all know, because we experienced it just 3 years ago, that if you ignore the forecasts, you pay a huge price in the cost of government borrowing, and then by implication the cost of borrowing for ordinary families through their mortgages. We've had 5 cuts in interest rates since I became Chancellor of the Exchequer, taking an average of £1,200 off a new mortgage. I am not going to risk the instability difficulty that we had under the Conservatives with our public finances or family finances, and that's why I have asked people to pay more. I can't write future budgets, but if you are asking, is this a budget I wanted to deliver today? Well, I would have rather the circumstances were different. But as Chancellor, I don't get to choose my inheritance, and I have to live in the world as it is, not the one that I might like it to be. And I believe that I made the fair and the necessary choices given the fiscal circumstances. I'm afraid that's all that I'm sorry. I think that's all that we've got time for this afternoon. But thank you very much, everybody, for coming along, and thank you particularly for the staff here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Was the Chancellor Rachel Reeves there taking the customary press conference. You may have heard somebody shouting out at the end there, can confirm. That was Chris Hope, GB News' political editor. Once again, GB News not getting a question from the Chancellor, completely ignored the People's Channel despite the fact our audience far surpasses that of many of the journalists in that room there. I don't think any of those journalists in the room were buying that at all. Even media organs that support the Labour Party ordinarily, they were not buying this high tax budget. Rachel Reeves there was asked if she's fit to carry on in her job. Can you in good conscience stay on in your job having broken your manifesto pledge not to raise taxes on working people? You can dress it up any way you like, that the actual hard rates of income tax and VAT weren't raised, but millions of people today will be paying more tax than they were before the budget. The customary gaggle of NHS workers around the Chancellor looking every inch like they've been hijacked, and perhaps they have. How many nurses will also now be dragged into higher rate tax brackets? Millions of working people will be pumping millions, billions actually, of extra money into this government in a high tax budget that's going to leave many, many people feeling the pinch. Let's get some full analysis now. I'm joined in the studio by the business journalist, the excellent Ian King, and also I'm joined by GBNews' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, this all is about tax. 8.3 billion extra alone in these higher rate income tax drags, the dreaded fiscal drag. The Labour Party can dress this up however they like. Today is a painful day for millions of Brits.
Well, it is. As you say, 780,000 people will be dragged into paying basic rate of income tax for the first time, 920,000 paying the higher rate, only 4,000 paying the additional 45p rate, which seems to me to be on the low side, but maybe that reflects what's going on in that particular end of the labour market. Yeah, it is a big extraction of money. That the fiscal the freezing in the fiscal thresholds, by the thresholds. I think that was just about the only measure that she announced that we hadn't heard in advance. We knew it was coming, but the expectation was it was going to be a 2-year freeze, and it's actually a 3-year freeze. By the end of that period, that policy alone is going to be extracting some £12 billion from workers each year. So it's a big ticket item. I think the other thing, it hasn't really attracted that much comment as yet, but the move that she's made on salary sacrifice, the ability of people to save into their pensions from their wages, that is a big ticket item as well. That's £4.7 billion. And really, when you tie that together with what they've done on cash ISAs, a lot of people will say, well, hang on, this is not necessarily a budget for savers. We know there's a pensions crisis looming, and yet she's making it harder for people to save into their pensions. Or she's trying to best to deter them. The cash ISAs thing is actually quite interesting because the argument that's been raging within the Treasury is that you don't want your money mouldering away in cash. You know, quite often it will be eaten away by inflation. If you invested in stocks and shares, which is clearly what the Treasury wants to do, and which is what the savings regime all those years ago when Nigel Lawson launched PEPs and John Major launched Tessers, that was all essentially to get more money into the stock market. So that's what they're trying to do that. But they've tried to neuter the political backlash that they get on that by saying that pensioners, anyone over 65, can continue to keep 20 grand a year in cash.
There's also the pay-per-mile tax on electric vehicles. Is that 1.4 billion? That raised dividends, 2 billion. Gambling tax, 1.1 billion. An astonishing figure that came out of this OBR report is the ballooning benefit bill. It's mind-blowing. The OBR forecast here, Ian King, says that the welfare bill will rise by £73.2 billion over the next 5 years to an astonishing £406.2 billion. And that will make a lot of people think that working people are getting up in the morning, going out, putting in a shift, and they're supporting people who are work shy.
What is very, very difficult for the government is that clearly the welfare, it's very, very clear in both the Red Book and in the OBR report here, is that welfare spending has increased more than anyone could possibly have expected. It may actually, Martin, be even worse than that. If you look at the risk factors set out in the OBR report, it says there remains significant uncertainty around the future costs of welfare spending due to the growth of disability and health caseloads, which have increased very sharply since the pandemic. And they go on to say, we assume in the forecast these caseloads will continue to rise, but at a slower pace than recently. If growth instead continued at the rate seen since the pandemic, this would increase spending in 2029-30 by a further 11 billion. I mean, that's more than a penny on the basic rate of income tax. So that kind of sets out. There have been broad hints from ministers throughout the day that they are going to have another go at welfare reform. And I think that's the quid pro quo for them doing away with the two-child benefit cap. They've told backbenchers they can have that. Very, very popular with Labour MPs. Not, I suspect, so widely popular with the broader public. But I think in return, Pat McFadden, the Work and Pension Secretary, is going to have another go at getting some of these sickness benefits down, or at least the rate at which they're grown, because as the OBR sets out here, that potentially is very, very expensive towards the end of this Parliament.
Nigel Nelson, the takeaway from this budget, even friendly journalists in that room, is nobody is buying it. You can sugarcoat this pill all you like. If you add the 30 billion tax rate today to Rachel Reeves's 40 billion in spring, it's a 70 billion pound stick-up. And benefits are ballooning. The only way people that go to work will look at this is they're being mugged off to go to work to pay for those sitting on their backsides.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ian's right there, that the lifting the two-child benefit cap was a buy-off for trying to control welfare spending. The question is getting it the right way round. So what Rachel Reeves started to do was to dress up welfare reform and then make it into a money-saving device by taking 5 billion.
Will allow a single penny to be saved.
5 billion from the disabled, and there was no reform there. There was no review. She abandoned that to have a proper review. So we've got it the right way round now. It's now not cart before horse. And so what will happen is Stephen Timms is doing a review. We'll get some idea who needs these benefits and, more importantly, who doesn't.
OK, thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Ian. Let's get out there and see what the great British people are saying to us. Let's join GBNews Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood, who's in Easington. Tom, you've been putting punch, you've been playing pool. Go on, break away, Captain.
Well, Martin, was this a make or break moment for the Chancellor? Well, perhaps she did a little better than I did there, but let's speak to some of the people in Easington. This constituency, of course, a place that has voted Labour for the very longest time, but has recently had some pretty profound political shifts. Diane Rowe, you are a independent councillor in the local area. What did you make of what the Chancellor had to say?
I think there was quite a variety of things that was very sceptically received in the Houses of Parliament there, and I think that reflects how the country's going to actually listen to what she was saying. One of the things I really like to pick up on was the fact that we need a lot of inward investment to keep our smaller areas going with the shops, the retails, etc. So there was this £13 billion to be invested locally, which I really appreciated of. But there's a lot of the key UK retailers saying one of the big things that we worry about is how much it's costing to employ people. So at one end of the scale, you've got to make sure there's investment by small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. But at the other end of the scale, the big companies are really worried about the cost of employing people. Yeah. So there's a lot to take in when you look at what Rachel's trying to deliver to people. But quite frankly, I think she's missed the boat because there is too much taxation on people and too much benefits going out. So that's one of my problems. We're taxing people what we really should be giving them to have spending power, and we're increasing the benefits for people who really should be held back to be not on benefits. So
difficult, and it's become more expensive to employ people as well with that minimum wage. Brian Brown, you were once a miner in this area. Now you're a businessman. What did you make of what the Chancellor had to say?
Well, I think it's important to note, Tom, that we're in the Easington constituency, which is an area of really high, extremely high deprivation and disadvantage. And it's so easy for families in this area to tip into poverty. And I'm not talking about relative poverty here, I'm talking about absolute poverty. People have nothing. So I was hoping today that, I mean, we've got families, working families, that are going to food banks. They're that desperate, never been known in this area. So, I mean, I was looking for some big hits today in the budget, and they didn't come for me. You know, so I'm disappointed, to say the least. Yes, they took the cap off the two-child benefit, but you know, that's small frying compared to the needs of this area in terms of, you know, the cost of living crisis. So I was really looking for some more measures to be introduced.
OK, well, Brian, Diane, thanks very much for joining us here. And of course, it's going to be a fascinating situation to see how places like Easington, places like County Durham continue to vote in the course of the next few years.
Well done, Tom Howard. Takes a brave man to break on a pool table on live TV. You managed it without missing, like I often do. On a serious point, lots more reactions coming now between now and 5 p.m. as Britain braces itself for the impact of the budget. Look at that, a wide picture there of Big Ben, for whom the bell tolls. Will the Chancellor be sleeping well tonight? The British public don't seem to be taking this very well at all. Loads more between now and 5 p.m, including we'll be getting all the very latest reaction to this budget from Westminster and all around the country. The People's Channel is out there talking to you, the great British public. But first, here's your latest news headlines on Budget Day with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you. 4:33, the headlines this hour. Rachel Reeves' budget has landed, overshadowed by an unprecedented leak. The OBR accidentally released its forecasts 40 minutes early, forcing an apology and now a formal investigation. Rachel Reeves outlined sweeping plans in the budget, including frozen tax thresholds, new annual charges on £2 million and £5 million homes, a mileage duty for EVs, pension tax changes and a cap on cash ISAs. She also confirmed the two-child benefit cap will end in 2026 as growth forecasts are downgraded. Farmers have driven tractors into central London today in defiance of police orders. Several arrests were made after agricultural vehicles breached protest restrictions. It comes after the Chancellor introduced a 20% tax on agricultural properties, over £1 million, in a move that farmers warn could wipe out small family-run farms. A man who drove into a crowd of Liverpool fans has admitted all 31 charges. 54-year-old Paul Doyle injured more than 130 people during the club's victory parade in May. Prosecutors call it an act of calculated violence. He'll be sentenced in December, with a lengthy term expected. In Hong Kong, at least 13 people are dead and 15 more injured after a major fire there. More than 700 firefighters still battling the blaze, which claimed the life of a 37-year-old firefighter described by officials as dedicated. Authorities still don't know how many people may be trapped inside. And Donald Trump is defending his special envoy after a leaked recording in a clip that appears to show Steve Witkoff advising a senior Russian official on how to appeal to the president. Donald Trump says Witkoff was simply doing what a deal maker does. The revised peace plan for Ukraine is now back on the table, and Witkoff returns to Moscow next week for further talks. Those are your Budget Day headlines. I'll be back with a full roundup at 5.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. A cloudy and damp afternoon to come for many of us after that bright start this morning, but it is turning milder and breezier. That's due to this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic that will bring some particularly strong winds through Thursday night and into Friday. Ahead of that, though, we've got this warm front bringing that milder air, but also outbreaks of rain, particularly across western areas throughout this evening, but it will push into the southeast overnight tonight around midnight, but the rain here will be relatively light. Now elsewhere across the northwest, we'll see some heavy pulses of rain through the night, but with a blanket of cloud across the country, it's going to be a much milder night. An early minimum across southeastern areas, temperatures actually closer to 9 or 10 degrees by 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now Thursday is looking relatively cloudy, breezy, and for some of us quite wet actually, particularly across northwestern areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain throughout the morning, particularly across the Highlands and the Western Isles, where there will be quite a breeze brisk southerly wind as well. Cloudy and damp across parts of Northern Ireland. Some heavy pulses of rain across western-facing hills, parts of the Pennines, and some drizzly outbreaks of rain across the high ground of Wales too, as parts of Cornwall could also see some outbreaks of rain first thing. But further south and east, we will see plenty of dry weather throughout the day, but it's going to be a much cloudier day on Thursday, and the breeze will pick up as the day goes on, particularly across more northwestern areas. This band of rain will push through Thursday afternoon as well, bringing a spell of heavier rain, but it is going to be a milder day wherever you are. Some sunshine actually breaking through across parts of Northern Ireland and western Scotland to end the day, but there's a risk of further heavy downpours. Now, we have got a wind warning in force through Thursday afternoon into Friday. Gusts could reach in excess of 75 miles per hour. Spell of wet weather potentially moving across southern areas into the weekend, and wherever you are, it's looking like it will turn colder again. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for our more than 2 million YouTube subscribers and more than 2 billion views. That is Britain watching, sharing and making its voice heard louder than ever before.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Traffic issues persist on the A90 northbound south of Lawrence Kirk due to a police incident. A 30 miles per hour speed limit is set on the A55 Britannia Bridge. Congestion on the A50 eastbound delays traffic by 30 minutes. Derbyshire's A38 southbound faces delays, expected to clear by 5:15. The M25 anti-clockwise has 2 lanes closed between junctions 13 and 12, predicted to resolve by 5. And on the trains, cross-country faces disruption between Bournemouth and Brockenhurst. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:39. Beg your pardon, with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, friends of GB News can vote in today's You Decide poll by scanning the QR code now on your screen. Here's today's big question. Do you feel better or worse off after the Chancellor Rachel Reeves' budget? Look at that. It's astonishing. Only 1% of you feel better off. 99% feel worse off. And those 1% of you out there, you're welcome to send a nice fact check into your old mate Martin here at GB News if you've got a few quid spare. Let's now speak with GB News' Yorkshire and Humberside reporter Anna Ryder, who's still there. Magnificent Scarborough. Anna, you were speaking to us earlier on saying the pensioners there feeling the pinch. Tell us more.
Yes, Martin, welcome to a wet and windy Scarborough. We're here today for the budget because Scarborough is the UK's retirement capital. 27% of people living here are over the age of 65, so we thought what better a place to come than Scarborough to speak to pensioners and get their reaction to the budget. Well, it's positive in some ways for pensioners. They're seeing a 4.8% rise in April to the state pension in line with average wages. That means that the new flat rate state pension for those who reach state pension age after April 2016, well, that will increase to £241 a week or £12,547 a year. That's a rise of £574, and it'll affect around 4.1 million pensioners. For those on the old basic state pension, for those who reach state pension age before April 2016, it will go up to nearly £185 a week, or that's £9,614 a year, a rise of £439, and that'll affect 8.8 million pensioners. And in general, you need to have paid into the system for 35 years of qualifying contributions to get that full state pension. But it does bring the state pension closer to being subject to income tax, which has been a source of some debate with those frozen tax thresholds. And that could mean that by the end of the decade, over 10 million pensioners could actually be paying tax there on their pensions. But what do people here make of it? We spoke to people in Scarborough. This is what they told us.
Problem is everything else is going up as well as tax. They put the budget, with the budget that's coming in, food prices will go up, petrol prices, well, they're going to stay frozen, I think. But if we're taxed on our pension, you've got less available income, so it's tough. for the people who are on the, if you've got a big private pension, you're okay. If you don't, it's going to be a struggle.
Well, they just keep moving the goalposts, don't they? You know what I mean? So I'm 64 now. I should have retired 4 years ago. That's what my plan was, when I started work when I was 16. And now it's like getting further and further away. So it's going to be 67 now, I guess. It's like, oh my word. So even though I'm his full-time carer, I've still got to keep on working.
So pensioners here in Scarborough, some people saying they haven't yet reached that age yet for being eligible for the pension because those goalposts keep changing, and with the rising cost of living, could they be giving in with one hand and taking from the other? We know that the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, as well, also confirmed an overhaul to the state pension regime, with thousands of retirees living abroad expected to pay more to access a full payment entitlement. So that's the view on the ground here in Scarborough from pensioners.
Across there on that windswept beach, go and get yourself a nice cup of tea and one of those legendary fish suppers. Thank you for joining us there live from Scarborough. Now let's get back to Westminster, get some reaction now. I'm joined, I'm delighted to say, by the Labour MP for Cardiff West, and that's Alex Barros Curtis. Alex, welcome to the show. Your first time in the studio. Pleasure to have your company.
Thank you.
And what a day. Everybody is talking about tax. 30 billions extra tax today, added to the 40 billions in the spring budget. That's 70 billion pounds worth of stick 'em up. I want your money from the Chancellor, and the overriding majority, you saw there, 99% of our viewers saying they feel worse off. You promised not to raise the taxes on working people. You completely and utterly have done a U-turn on that. You have raised tax on working people today.
So I'll say a couple of things. I think some people are saying tax. Actually, what I think this budget is about us setting out the right priorities and the fair priorities which respond to what the country and the people that we represent are going through. And cost of living is obviously first and foremost what comes through. The need to secure our NHS and, of course, to secure our economy. And from that, the decisions have been made, which I think are the right and fair ones. But as the Chancellor said very directly at the dispatch box, she is asking everyone to pay a little bit more. But what is crucial from that is that's in order to secure our public services after they were decimated after 14 years of failure to invest in them, and crucially to put some real tangible cost of living measures, to tackle cost of living measures in place. So I'm not surprised that the kind of poll you've mentioned there, people don't feel it immediately because it's only just been announced, but they are going to see some of these things. So whether it's the freeze of the duty for petrol, whether it's the £150 off their energy bills that they're going to see in the coming weeks and months, whether it's going to be seeing the uprating of the increase in the national minimum wage, national living wage, which, depending on which you're on and if you're full-time, working full-time, that's going to be between £900 and £1,400 more a year. So there were some really dedicated, targeted kind of measures, the right and fair ones, but undoubtedly in a difficult context, but absolutely the right and fair ones to do.
The savings you mentioned there are but peanuts compared to the losses from people's pockets. £8.3 billion in tax rises. 780,000 extra people dragged into basic rate tax for the first time. Probably a lot of them Labour voters, dare I say. 920,000 dragged for the first time into higher rate taxes. Teachers, coppers, nurses. This is a tax budget. And may I just carry on the flip side of that, it's a benefits bonanza, a gigantic giveaway. The figures in this report, Alex, are astonishing. The OBR forecasts the welfare bill will rise by 73.2 billion extra to 406 billion by the end of 2025. This is a tax on workers, and it's a giveaway for the work shy.
I mean, absolutely nonsense. Let's disaggregate some of that.
That's the data.
In terms of the kind of tax thresholds, what the Chancellor announced is from sort of 28 onwards. So bearing in mind what we're living in right now is exactly what the Tories did. Over a 7-year period. So let's not pretend.
We've got the highest taxes in history today, higher even than under the Conservatives.
What's in their record on this. They're the ones who brought it in. As the Chancellor said, she's asking everybody to make a contribution, but absolutely in order to make the right, fair decisions, and for those who can, paying more. So whether that's ensuring that for those who have £5 million house paying, Band H in Mayfair, they're getting a better deal in their kind of the tax band that they pay for their property versus a Band D in Darlington.
But that will raise peanuts. It's only about 400 million. It sounds like you're being punitive and punishing and tough on the rich. The amount of money you've raised is fact packets.
But it's about a package of measures, which is about targeting it at what we think are the fair and right ones to make. And in terms of the kind of the threshold in tax, as I said, these are measures that the Tories brought in many years ago. And on the point about welfare and benefits, this is something that is a misunderstanding of the budget. What the OBR says has absolutely, points to the position we inherited, the ballooning kind of welfare, the position with welfare benefits. And the Chancellor said in her statement that we need to reform that. But that will be part of a broader package, which is also about getting people back to work, which are what my constituents want.
Alex Barros, Curtis, we have to leave it there. We have to go to a break for more reaction. Loads coming. But first, here's your weather in some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunny skies for much of Spain on Thursday. Not particularly warm, however. More wet weather to come for parts of Italy and some warm winds blowing across the Greek islands. Reasonably warm in the Canary Islands with a chance of 1 or 2 showers. Fine and sunny, as I said, over most of Spain, but it is on the cool side here. Cold winds bringing plenty of showers to Sardinia and Sicily. Some heavy rain heading to Athens, but the Greek islands further east staying dry and sunny. Santorini, though, seeing showers this weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breast cancer is the most common cancer in the UK, and over a lifetime, 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer. It's mostly affecting women over 50. As you mentioned before, it does affect a small proportion of men, less than 1%, but still there is a potential risk. The good news is, if caught early, survival is excellent due to improved treatments and new drugs. So 99% of women and men survive for more than 5 years if caught early. And overall, the breast cancer survival rate is about 85%, which is fantastic. It's important to know that you have to check. Women have to learn to check their breasts. So if you notice anything different, dimpling, change in shape, a lump, go and get it checked out. Even though survival rates are much improved, we do have less survival here compared to other countries. So, for example, in America, 90% of women will survive over 10 years if they're with breast cancer. So it is important to get checked out just as soon as you notice any changes whatsoever.
Why is there that difference, Lucy, between, say, us and America, for example?
Well, the UK lags behind generally in cancer survival, 10 to 25 years, they estimate, over a range of cancers. That includes prostate, ovarian, lung, breast and bowel cancer. And there could be a number of reasons, but I think part of the problem, the NHS, is great when you get to the front of the queue, isn't it? But it's actually getting there.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Now it's 9 minutes to 5 now. Jeremy Corbyn has reacted to the budget. Let's take a little listen.
Yes, of course, ending the two-child benefit cap is welcome. It should never have been there in the first place, and it should have been abolished the moment Labour went into office, but it wasn't. So we've had an extra year of child poverty. That's a good thing. But by not raising the income tax threshold, it means more people will be brought into taxation who are the very lowest earners, and that's going to go on for another 6 years. And so what Rachel Reeves has baked in is higher tax for the lowest earners for the next 6 years. The other thing missing was any wealth tax. The mansion tax won't have much effect on the very wealthiest people, but a wealth tax of 2% on disposable wealth over £10 million would bring in over 20 billion a year. That would help a great deal to fund what I believe is the most essential thing, which is a council house building programme.
That was Jeremy Corbyn. Those police cars didn't stop for him. Let's get some reaction back in the studio. Ian King, we've been talking about this mansion tax. Now, the Labour Party are very excited about this. It shows they're being tough on the fat cats, but does it actually bring much money in?
No, I think this is... I mean, there's a classic old saying from Jean-Marie Corbyn, who was a French finance minister. He said the art of taxation is to produce the maximum amount of feathers with the minimal amount of hissing. I think this is going to cause an awful lot of hissing for very little money. They're only going to raise £400 million a year out of this. And for all of that, I think they're going to cause a great deal of angst. You're going to see a lot of behavioural changes, as the OBR states here. So there are going to be 4 price bands with a surcharge, £2,500 for a property valued in the lowest 2 to 2.5 million bracket, all the way up to £7,500 for a property valued in the highest band of 5 million or more, and that will be uprated each year by CPI. That money's not going to go to councils, by the way, even though it's a council tax surcharge. It's going to go straight to local government, to central government. And the OBR making the point, really, there's going to be a lot of behavioural responses to this. And in fact, this measure in the first 2 years, according to the OBR, is actually going to cost the government money. They're not going to start making it for a while.
There we go. So it's all smoke and mirrors, the mansion tax. Thank you very much, Ian. Thanks to Nigel Nelson. Let's get now to Jack Carson, still there in Lichfield for us. Jack, what are they telling you?
Well, here in Lichfield, of course, the middle of the country, the centre of England, I was getting jealous of Tom Harwood being in a pub, so I've come to one as well. Of course, one of the things that we heard in that budget is alcohol duty, of course, isn't going to be frozen. And so here in this pub, what do they make of it? Here in Lichfield, you'll find out from the owner after the break and after your latest weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. A cloudy and damp afternoon to come for many of us after that bright start this morning, but it is turning milder and breezier. That's due to this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic that will bring some particularly strong winds through Thursday night and into Friday. Ahead of that, though, we've got this warm front bringing that milder air, but also outbreaks of rain, particularly across western areas throughout this evening, but it will push into the southeast overnight tonight around midnight, but the rain here will be relatively light. Now, elsewhere across the northwest, we'll see some heavy pulses of rain through the night, but with a blanket of cloud across the country, it's going to be a much milder night. An early minimum across southeastern areas, temperatures actually closer to 9 or 10 degrees by 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now, Thursday is looking relatively cloudy, breezy, and for some of us quite wet actually, particularly across northwestern areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain throughout the morning, particularly across the Highlands and the Western Isles, where there will be quite a brisk southerly wind as well. Cloudy and damp across parts of Northern Ireland, some heavy pulses of rain across western facing hills, parts of the Pennines, and some drizzly outbreaks of rain across the high ground of Wales too, as parts of Cornwall could also see some outbreaks of rain first thing. But further south and east, we will see plenty of dry weather throughout the day, but it's going to be a much cloudier day on Thursday, and the breeze will pick up as the day goes on, particularly across more northwestern areas. This band of rain will push through Thursday afternoon as well, bringing a spell of heavier rain, but it is going to be a milder day wherever you are. Some sunshine actually breaking through across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland to end the day, but there's a risk of further heavy downpours downpours. Now, we have got a wind warning in force through Thursday afternoon into Friday. Gusts could reach in excess of 75 miles per hour. A spell of wet weather potentially moving across southern areas into the weekend, and wherever you are, it's looking like it will turn colder again. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the nation, because the truth matters, and so do you.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the A90 northbound, south of Lawrence Kirk, there's a restriction due to a police incident. The M4 westbound has a lane closed between junctions 46 and 47 due to an incident. In Derbyshire, drivers on the A38 southbound are experiencing delays. On the M3 eastbound in Hampshire, a collision has closed 2 lanes between junctions 13 and 12. Expect normal traffic conditions after 6:30. And on the trains, cross-country and Great Western Railway services are disrupted, affecting routes between Bournemouth and Brockenhurst and between Carmarthen and Swansea. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you until 7.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. on Budget Day, and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through for you until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on today's action-packed show. Carrying her red box of doom, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, today unleashed a blistering £30 billion tax raid, but she maintained she was making the right choices.
Yet to see a credible or a fairer alternative plan for working people. These are my choices, the right choices for a fairer, a stronger and more secure Britain.
But the reality is 8 million more workers will pay a higher rate of income tax, as Rachel Reeves confirmed that she would freeze thresholds for an additional 3 years.
To break the cycle of austerity, we need a fair and a sustainable tax system. That does mean that today I am asking everyone to make a contribution.
And as expected, the Chancellor has introduced a so-called mansion tax on properties worth over £2 million.
This new surcharge will raise over £400 million by 2031.
Painful for taxers, but a benefits bonanza as the Chancellor also announced that the two-child benefit cap will be scrapped, one of the most significant welfare giveaways in nearly a decade.
We on this side of the House do not believe that the solution to a broken welfare system is to punish the most vulnerable. We are lifting 450,000 children out of poverty with the end of the two-child limit.
And the Tory leader Kemi Badenoch blasted back and called for Rachel Reeves to resign.
After this budget, she will go down as the country's worst ever chancellor.
20 minutes. And meanwhile, Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride called for a criminal investigation as the OBR report sensationally was leaked and the budget was out there before Rachel Reeves even got to the dispatch box.
This report contains market-sensitive information. It is utterly outrageous that this has happened.
Total budget bedlam. And Mel Stride joins me in the studio later on in today's show. And Reform UK's Nigel Farage, he also put the boot into the budget.
He's managed to increase taxes in the space of just over a year, nearly more than any other Chancellor in history, and they had much longer to do this.
And meanwhile, despite a last-minute Metropolitan Police ban yesterday, British farmers have ploughed on to protest against the budget today.
Have to keep standing up for farming until there are changes.
We, the people, are the power, aren't we? You know, if we don't stand up now, we're not going to have an open house chance.
And throughout today's show, we'll bring you expert analysis to answer the only question that people really care about in Britain. Will you be any better off today than you were yesterday? Is Britain booming, or is the country going bust? Well, reporters will be getting instant reaction from across the country. First up is Jack Carson over there in Lichfield.
Here in Lichfield, of course, we're in the middle of England, probably as central as you can get, really. We've been speaking to businesses all afternoon here and their reaction. You'll hear from a pub owner this hour.
We're in Scarborough in North Yorkshire speaking to pensioners to get their reaction to the budget, as Scarborough is the UK's retirement capital.
I'm in Newtown Ards in County Down talking to business owners of how the budget will affect them, especially with a rise in the minimum wage.
Welcome to the show. How are you feeling on budget day? Are you feeling like you've had your pockets picked? And I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio by three of the farmers who organised today's protest. They came down to London despite the fact the Metropolitan Police told them to stay away. I'm learned in this past few moments that the 400 tractors estimated went up. They came down to London in even bigger numbers to make their voices be heard about today's budget. I'll speak to these boys in a short moment's time. I want to know how this budget has impacted you. Do you feel your wallet or your purse is lighter today than it was this time yesterday? Are you outraged about the fact there's an astonishing budget giveaway? Check this figure that leapt out at me. The OBR forecast, the one that was leaked earlier on today, the forecast for welfare will rise by £73.2 billion to £406 billion per year by 2025. How does it make you feel to get up every day and go to work, to be paying for these people to be sat on benefits? Let me know. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now it's your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Very good evening to you from the newsroom just after 5 o'clock. Well, one story today. Yes, it's the budget, and Chancellor Rachel Reeves has delivered it in the Commons today after key details were leaked early in an unprecedented pre-budget blunder. The Office for Budget Responsibility accidentally published its forecasts 40 minutes before the Chancellor stood up, prompting an immediate apology and a formal investigation. The plans themselves in the budget were sweeping. Income tax and national insurance thresholds frozen until 2031. New annual charges on homes worth over £2 million and £5 million. A mileage duty for electric vehicles, pension tax changes above £2,000 and a cap on cash ISAs from 2027 onwards. Rachel Reeves also confirmed the two-child benefit cap will be scrapped from next year and warned that growth forecasts have been downgraded. But the political reaction was instant and fierce. Here's Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch reacting to the news of that OBR leak.
Nobody wants this budget, Mr. Speaker. With resignations, hostile briefings and leaks galore, even just in the last 10 minutes, an unprecedented leak of the OBR analysis. Unbelievable. Mr. Speaker, these leaks have been so serious that even the former chief economist of the Bank of England has said, and I quote, that Labour's fiscal fandango is the single biggest reason why growth has flatlined. Does the Prime Minister agree with Andy Haldane, and does he have an explanation for this complete shambles?
In her response, Rachel Reeves said the early publication was deeply disappointing and a serious error, she said, on the part of the OBR.
This is deeply disappointing and a serious error on their part. The Office for Budget Responsibility have already made a statement taking full responsibility for their breach. Our net financial debt will be lower at the end of the forecast than it is today, and I will more than double the headroom against our stability rule to £21.7 billion. These are my choices, not austerity, not borrowing, not turning a blind eye to unfairness. My choices are a budget for fair taxes, strong public services and a stable economy.
In other news today, several arrests have been made after farmers drove tractors into central London, defying police restrictions during today's Budget Day protest. The Met Force says officers intervened when agricultural vehicles breached conditions set for the demonstration, warning on social media that anyone bringing machinery into the protest area would be told to leave. The row comes after last October's decision by Rachel Reeves to apply a 20% tax on agricultural property over £1 million, a move that farmers say could wipe out small family-run farms. Well, earlier today, Shadow Environment Secretary Victoria Adkins told us she thinks the ban is totally unfair.
These farmers have come from their farms all over the country to try to get this government to listen to them. And the police have been working with them very effectively for the last 12 days. And then late yesterday, they say, no, the protest is off. And instead, I came out of Westminster Tube this morning, assuming it was all going to be quiet and peaceful because the Met Police had ordered it to be so. But instead, we have an anti-Brexit campaigner who is there week in, week out with his speakers, disrupting us all. He's allowed to shout his inanities across Parliament Square today, and yet farmers have been stopped from protesting about a tax that is not only breaking British farming, but also hurting them personally.
A man who drove his car into a dense crowd of Liverpool football fans during the club's victory parade has pleaded guilty today to all 31 charges against him. 54-year-old Paul Doyle admitted dangerous driving, a fray, 17 counts of grievous bodily harm with intent, 9 counts of causing GBH with intent, and 3 counts of wounding with intent. That's after injuring more than 130 people in May. Prosecutors called it an act of calculated violence, saying Doyle deliberately forced his vehicle through supporters lining Water Street. The judge told him a lengthy custodial sentence is inevitable, with sentencing set for later in December. In Hong Kong, at least 13 people are now known to have died and 15 more injured in a huge residential fire tearing through apartment blocks in Hong Kong's Tai Po district. More than 700 firefighters are battling the level 5 blaze, Hong Kong's most serious, at Wang Fuk Court, home to around 4,600 residents. Dozens of fire engines are still arriving at the scene throughout the night. The government has paid tribute to a 37-year-old firefighter who died tackling the flames. There are unconfirmed reports at this stage that some residents may still be trapped inside. And US President Donald Trump is today defending his special envoy after a leaked recording appeared to show Steve Witkoff advising a senior Russian official on how to appeal directly to the president. Trump says he hasn't heard that audio, but insists Mr. Witkoff was simply doing what a deal-maker does as the US tries to sell its revised peace plan to both sides. The call surfaced just days after Washington's original 28-point peace proposal was criticised for leaning too far towards Moscow. It's since been rewritten, and President Zelensky of Ukraine says he is ready to meet Mr. Trump to resolve the remaining sensitive points. Witkoff is due back in Moscow next week for further talks. Those are the headlines for now. Let's take a look at the budget day markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
11 minutes past 5, and here are the markets for you. The pound will buy you $1.3213 and €1.1397. The price of gold is £3,148.98 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,675 points. Apologies there for the slight graphic issue.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now I'm joined in the studio by GB News' political editor Chris Hope. He joins me now, just come back from that press conference with Rachel Reeves. And I'm also joined now in the studio by the farmers, the organisers of today's protest, Dan Willis, George Brown and Gary Crockford, who was briefly arrested earlier on. But talking about arresting headlines, Chris Hope, I watched that press conference live. I was astonished. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, simply refused once again to take a question from GB News. What are they so afraid of?
Is it my face? Am I an aggressive individual? Do I look at I'm furious about stuff? I mean, I'm cross on behalf of our viewers for not being cool, but maybe it's me. I don't know what it is. I had my hand in the air for the press conference last time when she did the pitch rolling over breakfast. Again, this time, the Chancellor looked at me twice, looked away. I think our viewers and listeners absolutely deserve answers from this Chancellor on what's going on. Why are 99% of them in our poll of thousands of viewers saying they're worse off? Why wouldn't the Chancellor ask that question? What about the nurses are standing amongst, many of whom are now on 40% tax? Would you apologise to them, Chancellor? These are the questions I would have asked her. But again, she chose not to. And I'm not sure we'll see her on the channel again for a while. And we haven't seen her. We haven't had a chance to put any of the questions that matter so much to our viewers and listeners. It is a gross insult to GB News viewers and listeners that the Chancellor is not taking our questions. Here's what happened moments ago.
I believe that I made the fair and the necessary choices given the fiscal circumstances. I'm afraid that's all that I'm sorry. I think that's all that we've got time for this afternoon. But thank you very much, everybody, for coming along, and thank you particularly for the staff here.
So then I was saying to her, will you take the question from GB News? No, no time. And I said, why not? And the question, why not, is not been answered yet. I've had a word with her team. And they're probably texting me now. But a word from their team to ask why on earth they are not taking questions from GB News viewers. We are Britain's biggest news channel since July. We deserve the respect from this government, and they're not giving it to us, Martin.
Chris Hope, I very, very rarely see you, Ryan. You're a calm, temperate, sober individual. You're furious.
I'm furious about these people because I think it's outrageous. They must take the questions and answer the questions that our viewers demand we put to them. All we ask is a fair hearing. I want to get the Chancellor on the channel to explain what she's doing. She won't come on. It is a complete disgrace.
What was interesting, though, that even so-called friendly journalists gave her a monster ring today. Even journalists that seem to be normally of the Labour lean, shall we say, said, today you've broken your manifesto pledge. How in good conscience can you stay in your job? Yeah. I was struck by the fact she was surrounded by the usual gaggle of hijacked public sector workers, in this case, nurses. As you say, nurses will find themselves amongst the 920,000 people dragged into higher tax rates, if they're not careful, by this Labour budget.
These are people who any fair-minded taxpayer will want to pay for. We want to pay for nurses. They look after our families. They look after us if we fall ill. They are the heroes. They should, many of them, some should, but many should not be caught by 40% tax. I was asking around in that group. Some were on 40% tax. And I said, well, why don't you ask a question? You won't answer mine. Why don't you say, why am I on 40% tax under your government? You said last year this Chancellor. You said this: I've come to the conclusion that extending the threshold freeze margin would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their pay slips. She said that a year ago, and she was asked that question, said that's semantics. That's not semantics. That's the Chancellor saying doing this is hurting working people. And what's she doing? She's extending it by 3 years till 2031.
9 million extra people will be paying higher tax as a consequence of this budget today. We've got the record highest tax rate ever, 38.3% of people's income. And this is the point, 8.3 billion extra in those tax rises alone. 780,000 paying tax for the first time, 920,000 people, including a lot of those nurses, now paying higher rate tax, and they won't even take your question. It's astonishing.
It's ridiculous, and I don't know what to say about this. I'm doing my best to get the questions that our viewers want answered to the top people in government. That I know she's not alone in this government in not coming on the channel, and it's got to stop. OK, Chris Oak, you made your feelings strong enough. If you're watching out there, Labour top brass, get in touch. Come and join us. We don't bite. Have a cup of tea. Just face the British public. We're the biggest news channel now out there. We have been for 4 consecutive months. More people watch us on our smaller rivals. You keep taking their questions. Come and face the music. What are you afraid of? Let's get back to this farming protest in London today. As we told you yesterday, we carry it live on the show when the Metropolitan Police, lastminute.com, cancelled a protest that had been out there for months. Signed off, agreed, no problem. The organisers came on the show right at the very, very end of the show. They were devastated. But guess what? They couldn't stop the farmers rolling into London. I'm joined now by 3 of those lads who organised it. It's Dan Willis, George Brown and Gary Crockford, who was briefly arrested. I understand, Gary, more of that in a minute. Dan, come to you first. You were on last night's show. Thank you very much for that. You were crestfallen. You were clearly in a state of shock. But you didn't stay away from London. You didn't listen to the Met. You came to London. Tell us why.
Well, we knew our farmers would come. They would have to come. You know, they were angry. The Met's decision is just, you know, you're just throwing petrol on the fire. So they were coming. There was nothing we could do to stop them. We had to come and see what was going to happen. You know, there was probably 400-odd tractors coming originally, and I think as soon as the message went out to stop all tractors, the numbers grew up to 500, 550-odd tractors from all directions.
And Dan, the police kept you away, though, from Downing Street. At one point this morning, I thought, blimmin' hell, you're going to, blockade the Chancellor into number 10, or at very least blast out Crazy Shark on your horns to the point where she would have been completely drowned out.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly getting used to it. They certainly love the tunes. It would have been superb to have it along Whitehall. It would have been controlled. It would have been a really good demonstration. However, I think this way, I have to say, the government, you know, pushing the Met to do what they've done, they've scored an own goal.
Gary, let's bring you in now. I understand you were briefly cuffed by the old Bill for your part. Tell us about that.
Yeah, driving happily down the road to come into London this morning. Police cars raced up the outside of us, pulled straight across in front of us, stopped us in our tracks. I sounded my horn as we were rolling to a stop. She came along and said, you need to get out of your vehicle. And I said, what for? I haven't done anything wrong. She said, you've sounded your horn while you're stationary, which, as far as I'm aware, wasn't an offence.
If you let me tell you this much for free. If you arrested everybody in London who's sounded their horn while they're stationary, half of London would be in the nick.
And that was my answer to her. That was my answer. I said, why aren't you arresting half of London then? And she didn't really have an answer.
The old Bill do it?
Yeah, she didn't have an answer for it.
Let's get that video on again. So Gary, this is you. What time of day was it? This is early this morning, right? Still dark.
It would have been just before 6, I would have said.
Just before 6. So you're driving to London. They flagged you down.
Yep.
They've got you in handcuffs. You're obviously still here.
Yep.
So you didn't? Did you see did you trouble the inside of a jail cell, or did they let you go?
No, it literally kept me on the side of the road for half an hour while they checked out vehicle, because they said it might be stolen. And I said, do we all look like thieves? There's 20 of us in a row. Did we look like we've stolen these tractors?
You hot-wired a tractor and just decided to drive to London for the day. Seriously?
And she just couldn't answer any of my questions. Yeah, I think that they were just trying to make a point out of some of us today.
George, let's bring you in now. You've been sat there patient. It just is an incredible situation where I watched the budget today with actually three of the farmers who come on the show regularly, Ollie Harrison, Clive Bailey, Martin Williams. They were watching it in GB News here, and we were all listening for the Chancellor to even mention the F word, farming. Didn't even get a mention.
No, absolutely. No, I don't think we're in the front or the back of their minds. I'm sure we have been today. To be quite honest, I think farmers will be right in the front of their minds. But as far as looking after us, they don't seem to have us on the radar at all.
It's an incredible state of affairs, gentlemen. Thank you for coming all the way down here. Thank you for coming to see us in the studio today. And I wonder, actually, if what's happened today has simply galvanised the public support for what you gentlemen and ladies
100%.
do. I mean, are you getting that feeling that the public are more behind you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, you can see the looks on their faces. The public, whether it's, people in cars, taxis, buses, trucks, they're all out there waving, blasting their horns with you, giving it the big fist bump. You know, they love it. I mean, we don't want to be here. That's the fact of the matter. We don't really want to be here. We need to be at work. You know, we've got farms to run, you know. And it's a sad state of affairs that we're stuck here doing this, really. I mean, it's unbelievable to be put in such a position.
OK, Gary, Dan and George, thank you very much for your round. In about 40 minutes, I'll have a pint with you over the road. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, I'm joined by those farmers. Now, we're going past that. Let's get to Lichfield now for more budget reaction. GB News national reporter has been the centre of Britain. Jack Carson, it's got to be thirsty work. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Well, I was getting jealous of Tom Harwood being in a pub all day, so I've come to one and got myself a drink as well. But, of course, one of the things introduced in today's budget, of course, are those changes to alcohol duty coming in, that rise coming in from February 2026. Now, the government say that is to maintain its current real terms value. They say it's to not only balance the important contribution of producers and the hospitality sector to the UK's economy, but also do what the duty's job, they say, is, which is to try and reduce alcohol harm. But, of course, people here, businesses here, you know, that is going to be, you know, another cost for them to take on, as well as so many costs that just running a premises for your business, you know, includes, as well as electricity, heating, all of those kind of additional costs. Tony Bothley, who is the owner here of the Whippet Inn in Lichfield, spoke to us earlier on.
I think sort of disappointment, but I'm not surprised by anything I've heard today. I mean, there's been a bit of tinkering around the edges with business rate relief, but ultimately the VAT liability for a place like this, to give you an example, I've tripled turnover since I took this place over 3 years ago, and I'm barely breaking even. And it's the VAT liability, it's the increased costs of running this place. So my electricity bill this month is £500. Look at this.
Darryl.
Yeah, you heard a little bit of Tony there, and essentially what he's been telling us today, you know, is all of his costs have gone up. You know, this is a micro pub in Lichfield, but it still costs him £500 on his electricity bill every month. Now, of course, Rachel Reeves announcing in the budget that household energy bills would go down £150 for businesses like this. You know, it doesn't really make too much of a difference, that kind of announcement. And interestingly, Tony as well was saying that, you know, he's so passionate about running this micro pub, so passionate about being, you know, a hub in the centre of the community, a place where people to come and visit and talk to each other. There's live music that comes on here in the evenings and stuff at the weekends as well, bands that come here. And he was telling us that in order to try and support this business, Martin, he's taken on a second job. So passionate is he about wanting to keep this business going. He's taken on a second job just to try and afford it. So he's become even more of a working person. Of course, working people getting quite a mention in the budget today by the Chancellor. He's become even more of a working person just to try and keep this business going. But also he mentioned as well, of course, with the increase that we're seeing to the national living wage, he's having to cut down some of the hours of his staff. So this is really, you know, here in Lichfield, middle of the country, that's the kind of impact that this budget is already having on businesses here.
Jack Carson, superb. You've been great today. Have a little tug on that jungle juice, mate. I'll be doing the same myself at 6 p.m. Cheers, Jack Carson. Thank you. You've been excellent today. Now, loads more still to come throughout the rest of the show, including, let's go to GB News reporter Doogie Beattie now in Belfast. Doogie.
Well, more money for devolved regions. Is it spending reviews, Barna consequentials? Is the money there, or is it all smoke and mirrors? I'm in Newton Ards with a businessman to find out what he thought of the budget.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 5:28. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Let's get now to GB News Northern Ireland reporter Doogie Beattie. Doogie, what are they telling you over there in Belfast?
Well, I listened to Rachel Reeves today. She talked about Barnett consequential spending reviews. That is all smoke and mirrors of how much money is going to go in to devolved regions. It's a very difficult sum to do. And then the Hothram formula is on top of that. That's a discussion for a whole other day. But we also heard her talk about British Steel and how she was going to use that for weapons manufacturing to keep their products coming in. Well, of course, in Northern Ireland, because of the framework document, we have to pay 25% on British Steel, and we have one of the only big working shipyards left in the UK, and some of the biggest weapons manufacturers. If we don't get our steel from the EU, we have to pay 25% on British Steel and then try to claim that back. That's a big push on your cash flow. And I'm joined now by a retailer, 38 years in the game. William Gilliland's the head of Axel Clothing. William, what did you see in this budget today? Anything for you?
No, it's the gift that keeps on giving, or maybe the gift that keeps on taking. Obviously, the key things that affect us, especially in the retail business in the high street, would be minimum wage and the rates. I know the rates in GB and the rates in Northern Ireland are somewhat different, but there's been no help there. We have a rating system for retail stores that's been broken for many, many years and still consistently hampers any level of growth in retail. Obviously, minimum wage is the big one. There's really nothing minimum about it. It just keeps going up every year. It gets harder for us to get staff because in many ways now, with the way the system works with government, for a lot of people who should be working or could be working in a retail store of ours, it's actually more beneficial for them to sit at home and do nothing. I've often felt myself maybe I should be better doing that as well.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, is it really practical now for you to be on the high street?
Well, certainly after 38 years of retail, we've had many challenges, especially in Northern Ireland with retail, with all the problems we've had in the past. But certainly with the levels of taxes, every single which way you turn, there is no level of commitment I see by the government in terms of entrepreneurship in any sort of way of helping revitalise high streets.
Thank you very much, William. So that is the words of a business owner in Northern Ireland that employs people and is looking at the high street every day. It's a no from him on this budget.
Doogie Beattie, the budget blues there in Belfast. Thanks as ever for your work, Doogie Beattie. Let's go back now to Westminster. I'm joined by the director of Silver Voices, Dennis Reed, and also, of course, by GBNews' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Dennis, always a pleasure to have your company. So you're talking about pensioners. Has it been a bleak day for Britain's OAPs?
Overall, yes, it definitely has, because any goodies that came our way, like, for example, the reductions on the energy bills, have all been paid for, overpaid for, by the massive tax hike, by freezing the tax thresholds, particularly the lower tax threshold. And this has got really serious implications for older people, because by 2031, the 3 years now that it's been extended, by 2031, virtually all pensioners will be paying tax on their state pensions, which is a ridiculous situation. We're already struggling. Large numbers are struggling. 80% of pensioners are worried about paying their bills, their heating bills this winter, and this is just going to heap misery on them, really. And it's unconscionable what has been done.
The winter fuel allowance, the thing that caused so much consternation, of course, that they did a U-turn on that. That has been rolled back. So there are some crumbs of comfort for you. And also, I understand the ISA limit doesn't apply to the over 65, so the cash ISA you can still pay on. But with the headwind of everything becoming more expensive, are you saying any crumbs of comfort thrown pensioners' way has simply been eaten up by that force?
But yeah, by the freeze, in that 3 years, there'll be about 20 billion extra tax paid by pensioners across the country. That's of all incomes. Not just higher income, but lower income as well. So yes, it really is a difficult situation. We're not going to give this up, Martin. We're going to keep campaigning to reverse that freeze. We're not going to just sit back and wait to 2031, because our members will be demanding that we take action on this.
Nigel Nelson, to add to the long list of disgruntled people today, we can now add pensioners.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I understand Dennis's anger. However, there's no reason why pensioners should be exempt from taxes any more than working people are. If you think about the near million people who are about to go into a higher tax band, they will be finding that from 20% they're going to be paying 40% tax. Those are working people. So I think that everyone has to bear some part of the burden. The area where I think that there will be most difficulty is it's been policy of government for years to actually encourage pension saving. Obviously, by now adding national insurance to salary sacrifice, which you put into your pension, people are going to lose that and fewer people will be saving.
OK, thank you very much. And thank you to you, of course, Dennis Reed. Thanks for coming in. Always an absolute pleasure. Now, don't go anywhere. We're getting all the latest reaction as Chancellor Rachel Reeves unleashed a blistering £30 billion tax rate. I'll be joined in the studio by Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, for his unmissable reaction. That's next. But first, here's your headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good evening to you. 5:34. The headlines. Rachel Reeves' budget has landed, overshadowed though by an unprecedented leak. The OBR accidentally released its forecast 40 minutes early, forcing an apology and now a formal investigation. Rachel Reeves outlined sweeping plans, including frozen tax thresholds, new annual charges on homes and mileage duty for EV pension tax changes above £2,000 and a cap on cash ISAs from 2027. She also confirmed the two-child benefit cap will end in 2026 as growth forecasts are downgraded. Farmers have driven tractors into central London today in defiance of police orders. Several arrests were made after agricultural vehicles breached protest restrictions. It comes after Rachel Reeves introduced a 20% tax on agricultural property over £1 million, a move that farmers warn could wipe out small family-run farms. A man who drove into a crowd of Liverpool fans has admitted all 31 charges. 54-year-old Paul Doyle injured more than 130 people during the club's victory parade in May. Prosecutors call it an act of calculated violence. He'll be sentenced in December with a lengthy term expected. Breaking tonight, at least 13 people are dead and 29 now in hospital after a major fire in Hong Kong. More than 700 firefighters have been battling the blaze, which claimed the life of a 37-year-old firefighter. Authorities in the last few minutes have confirmed 279 people are still unaccounted for and may be trapped inside. And Donald Trump is defending his special envoy after a leaked recording. The clip appears to show Steve Witkoff advising a senior Russian official on how to appeal to the president. Trump says Mr. Witkoff was simply doing what a deal-maker does. The revised Ukraine peace deal is now back on the table, and Witkoff is set to return to Moscow next week for further talks. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with the 6 o'clock news.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News. No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Feet earlier this year as part of the first group to trek the same route as Lawrence of Arabia.
A former Special Forces officer, Howard Leedham, followed in Lawrence's footsteps across Saudi Arabia and Jordan in a 25-day journey. And I'm very happy to say he joins us now. Howard, thank you very much for coming to see us.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, talk us about what you're putting on, having completed that remarkable trek.
Well, we did the trek in January and February, and I was odd enough to lead a team of Special Forces Club members to do the entire route that Lawrence did in 1917. 685 miles, 1,100 kilometres, took us 25 days. We started off with 5 riders, 4 riders made it, and the last 9 days we spent in Jordan. And one of the things that in Saudi, we would basically follow Lawrence's route from water to water and go to the same wells that he had gone, because that's what they had to do, as they worked their way around the Nefed Desert. And then, obviously, when they came in towards Aqaba, because the guns in Aqaba all faced towards the sea, yeah. so they had to cross the uncrossable desert to get into the back of Aqaba. And when you come into Jordan, what strikes you is, because of the topography and because of the way that the history is so well recorded in that area, is that you can basically follow almost the precise route that he followed, and basically sleep in the same places that he slept, so you can really feel what they were doing and how they tactically moved down in order to take the port of Aqaba.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 5:30 and I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride, as well as GB News' political editor Chris Hope and GB News' political senior commentator Nigel Nelson. Mel Stride, welcome to Westminster. I wanted to ask you about this OBR report. It leaked out early. It was already the leakiest budget in history. Yeah. But for this to go out before the Chancellor even took to the dispatch box, you called for some kind of criminal investigation.
Well, absolutely. This is unheard of, that a document that is full of market-sensitive
data and information should be leaked or put out early. No MP in that chamber had seen it, but yet it was being leaked out and passed around on the internet and so on. And so I made a point of order, actually, and said on the floor of the House that we should have a proper full investigation into this as to how it happened, why it happened, and what the consequences should be.
The heads need to roll to somebody from the OBI to get the job?
Yeah, we need to work out exactly what has happened. That's the first base here, and we need to do that as quickly as possible. But look, Martin, this comes on the back of one of the most chaotic build-ups to a budget, possibly ever. All this hokey-cokey about what's in or out, whether they're going to put up income tax or not, flying so many kites from the Treasury that they blotted out the sun, which basically cast a long shadow over businesses that have had that uncertainty, pressing pause on investing, on hiring people, consumers who are worried about what may be happening in the budget, deciding not to go out and spend. This has had real-life consequences on the state of our economy, and it's unforgivable.
And yet, Mel Stride, at the press conference earlier on, Rachel Reeves blamed Brexit, obviously, but she blamed you. She blamed the Conservatives.
She'll blame everybody. I gave a speech at the Commons the other day, and I said, Mr. Speaker, do you think she could possibly blame the Norman conquest and the harrowing of the North? Because that must have some economic scars that are reverberating 1,000 years down the line. You know, this is all nonsense. It's a smokescreen. She took the wrong decision. She put up taxes on businesses, went out and borrowed a lot of money, spent a lot of money, pumped up inflation, interest rates higher than they would otherwise have been, mounding up our national debt, huge servicing costs on that debt. And these are her mistakes. So she's got to own where we are at the moment.
Kemi Badenoch was blistering today in her response to Rachel Reeves, saying she had to resign. The fact of the matter is record high taxes, 38.3%, an extra 8.3 billion on the dreaded fiscal drag. Meanwhile, a multi-billion pound benefits bonanza. This isn't a budget for working people.
No, it's a benefit
for the work shy.
It's a benefits budget. So what she's done is she's dragged probably 1.6 or 1.7 million people into higher rates of tax because of the choices she's taken. And she has been prepared to put more money into welfare, scrapping the two-child benefit cap, for example, which means that those on benefits are not having to take those tough decisions about the size of the family that they can afford. They don't have to worry about that under Labour now. That will be paid for by hard-working taxpayers. And we don't think that's right.
Chris.
Sir Mel Stride, I don't want to be too much about GB News, but Rachel Reeves has not taken questions from our channel in 2 consecutive press conferences. I just run to and fro from a hospital from presenting on the channel. She wouldn't take a question from GB News. We were there with our hand in the air. 99% of our viewers think they're worse off in this budget. Why won't she answer our questions?
Well, I guess she doesn't like the scrutiny. I mean, look at all this mansplaining nonsense. This was all a smokescreen, OK? None of this is about gender. It's about economic competence. And I'm afraid the Chancellor has been woefully incompetent when it's come to the economy. And she should take your questions, Chopper. You're a perfectly reasonable person, after all.
It's not about me. It's about the viewers and listeners. They demand the answers.
Yeah. Well, she should do. Well, hopefully she will do next time, but she should have done already. Yeah.
It's been a bleak day for practically everybody, Mel Stride. Certainly those who go to work just can't believe that they're paying so much extra tax to pay for a huge benefits bonanza. And the two-child cap again. Some of the figures that come out of this OBR report are simply breathtaking. Over the next 5 years, this report forecasts the welfare bill will rise by £73.2 billion extra to an astonishing £406.2 billion. We can't afford the benefits bill. It's going to bankrupt Britain.
It's a huge drag on the economy. It sees far too many people out of work on benefits instead of in work. We set out at our conference £47 billion worth of savings across government, £23 billion from the welfare bill. We need to get people into work and off benefits. The problem with this government is, of course, they tried to do this. Their backbenchers would not wear it, even the modest reforms they came forward with, and they have shown that they are incapable now of gripping public spending and welfare in particular. And that's a huge problem for all of us, because that's why we're all having to pay more tax.
It's a problem that started under your government. You had 14 years to deal with this. You didn't do it. You did fight the last election on a pledge, I think, of £20 billion worth of cuts on benefits, but it could be £100 billion by the end of the decade.
Well,
it's on your watch.
Chopper, we had actually started to arrest that rise in the welfare bill. We put through some changes to the work capability assessment that the OBR themselves said would have seen 450,000 fewer people going onto those long-term sickness and health benefits. First thing the government did when they got into office was scrap it, and then came up with their watered-down version, which they failed to get through the Commons. So that's the problem. We were doing things, and we consulted on PIP reform and all sorts of other stuff. It is quite possible to get big savings out of the welfare budget, get more people back to work, and take the pressure off hard-working people who are otherwise having to pay more tax.
Thank you very much, Mel Stride. Nigel Nelson, quick comments from you. You can see there that the poll is damning 99% of our punters feel worse off, and a recurring comment we've heard all day. Why do I have to get out of bed in the morning to go to work, to put in a shift, to pay more tax, £8 billion worth extra tax from working people going into this benefits black hole, a £15 billion benefits bonanza giveaway? The Labour Party are no longer the party of working people, they're the party of the work shy.
Well, when we're talking about benefits, and certainly the two-child benefit cap, the 450,000 children who will be lifted out of poverty because of this can't be blamed for being in poverty in the first place. So I understand Mel's point of view that the Conservative policy is that taxpayers shouldn't pay for other people's children. But if those children are in poverty, it is right that we take them out of poverty, and at least the tax rises, like the gambling tax, helps to pay for it.
But I would say the best way for people to come out of poverty, including children, is through work. And that's what we achieved when we were in office. What unfortunately these latest forecasts in here show is that unemployment is going to be higher than was previously forecast in every single year. And part of that story is higher tax and higher welfare bills.
OK, thank you very much, Mel Stride. Thank you, Nigel Nelson. Thank you, Chris Hope. Don't go anywhere. We'll have a full end-of-day roundup. Who were the winners? Who were the losers in today's budget? That's next.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 8 million followers across social media. Thank you for making us a part of your daily life.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Traffic on the M74 southbound is restricted after junction 14 due to a collision. Expect congestion on the M4 eastbound between Cardiff Gate and Tredegar Park. In Cheshire East, delays are due to a broken-down vehicle on the M6 northbound between junctions 19 and 20. Congestion is on the A50 eastbound between the A500 and A521 Blythe Bridge West. The A38 southbound is congested between the A50 and A5132. In Hertfordshire, lanes are closed on the A1 southbound due to a collision. In Southampton, one lane remains closed on the M27 eastbound at junction 4. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 to 6 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, carrying a red box of doom, the Chancellor today unleashed a blistering 26 billion or even 30 billion pounds tax raid. But she maintains she was making all the right choices. Well, I'm joined in the studio by GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, and also the business journalist and the finance commentator Ian King. Ian, let's start with you. It's been a huge day. Who are the winners? Who are the losers?
Winners, people on benefits, obviously, or people who are going to benefit from the lifting of the child benefit cap, and that is actually hundreds of thousands of families up and down the land. So there are some winners there. Rail passengers, potentially, although that's being subsidised by taxpayers elsewhere who may not ever even step onto a train. So bear in mind, 3 in every 4 rail journeys in the UK start and finish in London. So potentially you're getting people from outside London subsidising people commuting into the city every day. But rail users, they're winners. 1 or 2 shout-outs for businesses. Rolls-Royce got a mention for what they're doing with small modular reactors. If I look at the stock market, losers include very much the house builders. They got a spanking today. A lot of concerns about this mansion tax surcharge, if you like, those we've discussed. It isn't going to raise that much, but it will gum up the housing market. It looks like a very, very badly constructed tax, and that's going to hit housing activity. The bookies, funny enough, are winners. Their shares are up today. I think some of the taxes on gambling weren't quite as bad as everyone expected. We had these blood-curdling threats from the likes of Betfred and Ladbrokes that they were going to close stores if the tax came in as expected. Well, it does look like the Chancellor listened to reason. Big win for the horse racing industry, which employs 85,000 people. So they've done quite well out of this.
But Ian King, back to people at home, 9 million extra Brits raised into higher tax brackets. That's going to hurt.
Yeah, very much so. Not just people having to pay tax for the first time. You've got nearly 1 million people who are going to be dragged into that higher rate of tax as well. And that's a really big moment when your tax bills goes up from 20% to 40%. That's really, really noticeable. And that will really eat into people's salaries. The other thing is, viewers may not have a lot of sympathy for them, but people at the very top, you've got this cliff edge. If your pay goes over £100,000, there are people who lose significant sums of money, childcare, and now they're not even going to be able to hide from that by salary sacrifice.
We've got to leave it there. Dubes & Co. is up next. Michelle Dewberry, what's on your menu?
Great programme as always. We'll get stuck into it then. The good, the bad and the ugly of the budget tonight. I've got Richard Tice for Reform UK. I've got Victoria Atkins for the Tories. And I've got Caroline Atkinson as well for Labour. I've also got a Treasury representative. So I'll be asking him, why on earth does Rachel Reeves totally ignore GB News viewers when it comes to questions? See you in a minute.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A cloudy and damp afternoon to come for many of us after that bright start this morning, but it is turning milder and breezier. That's due to this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic that will bring some particularly strong winds through Thursday night and into Friday. Ahead of that, though, we've got this warm front bringing that milder air, but also outbreaks of rain, particularly across western areas throughout this evening, but it will push into the southeast overnight tonight around midnight, but the rain here will be relatively light. Now elsewhere across the northwest, we'll see some heavy pulses of rain through the night, but with a blanket of cloud across the country, it's going to be a much milder night. An early minimum across southeastern areas, temperatures actually closer to 9 or 10 degrees by 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now Thursday is looking relatively cloudy, breezy, and for some of us quite wet actually, particularly across northwestern areas of Scotland. Some heavy pulses of rain throughout the morning, particularly across the Highlands and the Western Isles, where there will be quite a brisk southerly wind as well. Cloudy and damp across parts of Northern Ireland, some heavy pulses of rain across western facing hills, parts of the Pennines, and some drizzly outbreaks of rain across the high ground of Wales too, as Parts of Cornwall could also see some outbreaks of rain first thing, but further south and east we will see plenty of dry weather throughout the day, but it's going to be a much cloudier day on Thursday, and the breeze will pick up as the day goes on, particularly across more northwestern areas. This band of rain will push through Thursday afternoon as well, bringing a spell of heavier rain, but it is going to be a milder day wherever you are. Some sunshine actually breaking through across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland to end the day, but there's a risk of further heavy downpours. Now, we have got a wind warning in force through Thursday afternoon into Friday. Gusts could reach in excess of 75 miles per hour. A spell of wet weather potentially moving across southern areas into the weekend, and wherever you are, it's looking like it will turn colder again. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 8 million followers across social media. Thank you for making us a part of your daily life.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Traffic on the M74 southbound is restricted after junction 14 due to a collision. Expect congestion on the M4 eastbound between Cardiff Gate and Tredegar Park. In Cheshire East, delays are due to a broken-down vehicle on the M6 northbound between junctions 19 and 20. Congestion is on the A50 eastbound between the A500 and A521 Blythe Bridge West. The A38 southbound is congested between the A50 and A5132. In Hertfordshire, lanes are closed on the A1 southbound due to a collision. In Southampton, one lane remains closed on the M27 eastbound at junction 4. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can enjoy Christmas on us. First, we'll give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you a further £10,000 cash to spend on all your Christmas presents, even the tree. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with £1,000 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name's Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Jubes and Co. Finally, the day that we've all been waiting for. I don't know about you, but I couldn't cope with much more speculation, so I'm pleased it's finally here. I can tell you right now, Budget Day has been a massive day when it comes to tax rises, also a massive day when it comes to benefit spending. This is how Rachel Reeves summed up her decisions today.
These are my choices, the right choices for a fairer, a stronger and more secure Britain.
Well, Kemi Badenoch was having absolutely none of that, and this is how she described it.
That smorgasbord of misery we just heard from her can be summed up in one sentence. Labour are hiking taxes to pay for welfare. This is a budget for Benefit Street, Madam Deputy Speaker, paid for by working people.
Well, as you would expect, very different opinions indeed. So you tell me, what are your opinions on what you have seen today? We're going to get into it all, the good, the bad and the ugly. Keeping me company, my panel tonight. What a treat for you, everybody. Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. It doesn't stop there. The Shadow Environment Secretary, Victoria Atkins. And here's the treat, because we've got an extra person as well tonight, the Labour MP, Catherine Atkinson. But before we get stuck in, let's cross and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you, and a very good evening to you. Just after 6 o'clock, well, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has delivered her budget after its key details were leaked early in an unprecedented pre-budget blunder. The Office for Budget Responsibility accidentally published its forecasts 40 minutes before the Chancellor stood up in the Commons, prompting an immediate apology and a formal investigation. The plans themselves, well, they are sweeping. Income tax and national insurance thresholds frozen until 2031. New annual charges on homes worth over £2 million and £5 million. A mileage duty for electric vehicles, pension tax changes above £2,000 and a cap on cash ISAs from 2027. Rachel Reeves also confirmed the two-child benefit cap will be scrapped from next year and warned that growth forecasts have been downgraded. But the political reaction was instant and fierce. Here's what Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch had to say as she reacted to that OBR leak.
Nobody wants this budget, Mr. Speaker. With resignations, hostile briefings and leaks galore, even just in the last 10 minutes, an unprecedented leak of the OBR analysis. Unbelievable. Mr. Speaker, these leaks have been so serious that even the former chief economist of the Bank of England has said, and I quote, that Labour's fiscal fandango is the single biggest reason why growth has flatlined. Does the Prime Minister agree with Andy Haldane, and does he have an explanation for this complete shambles?
In her response, Rachel Reeves said the early publication was deeply disappointing and said it's a serious error on the part of the OBR.
This is deeply disappointing and a serious error on their part. The Office for Budget Responsibility have already made a statement taking full responsibility for their breach. Our net financial debt will be lower at the end of the forecast than it is today, and I will more than double the headroom against our stability rule to £21.7 billion. These are my choices, not austerity, not borrowing, not turning a blind eye to unfairness. My choices are a budget for fair taxes, strong public services and a stable economy.
Well, a stark warning tonight from the budget watchdog. The asylum system, they say, could face £1 billion overspend by 2028. Ministers had promised to end the use of hotels and cut asylum spending by £1.1 billion. But the OBR says if costs stay at current levels, the system could blow a £1.4 billion hole in the budget within 4 years. It comes as small boat arrivals are up 19% and asylum seekers in supported accommodation are up 8% on the last year. Several arrests have been made after farmers drove tractors into central London today, defying police restrictions during the Budget Day protest. The Met Force says officers intervened when agricultural vehicles breached conditions set for the demonstration, warning on social media that anyone bringing machinery into the protest area would be told to leave. The row comes after last October's decision by Rachel Reeves to apply a 20% tax on agricultural properties over £1 million, a move that farmers say could wipe out small and family-run farms. A man who drove his car into a dense crowd of Liverpool fans during the club's victory parade has pleaded guilty today to all 31 charges against him. 54-year-old Paul Doyle admitted dangerous driving, a fray, 17 counts of grievous bodily harm with intent, 9 counts of causing GBH with intent, and 3 counts of wounding with intent, all after injuring more than 130 people in May. Prosecutors called it an act of calculated violence, saying Doyle deliberately forced his vehicle through supporters. The judge told him a lengthy custodial sentence is inevitable, with sentencing set for December. And let's take you live now to scenes in Hong Kong, where we now know the death toll from a massive fire that ripped through multiple high-rise residential blocks there has sadly risen to 36. More than 700 firefighters are still battling the level 5 blaze. That is Hong Kong's most serious at the Wang Fuk Court, home to around 4,600 residents. Dozens of fire engines are still at the scene, and the government has paid tribute to a 37-year-old firefighter, just one of a number who died tackling the flames today. At least 279 people are understood to still be missing, with fears that some residents may still be trapped inside. Those are your Budget Day headlines. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at 7 o'clock. Now, though, it is over to Michelle and the panel.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.